Okay, I'm trying my best here. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Good evening. This is the time and place set for the regular Royal Oak Planning Commission meeting for August of 2023. I will call the meeting to order, starting at my far right. Please introduce yourself.
Ann Beakey, good evening.
Clyde Esbury.
Tim Twing, Director of Community Development.
Nick Krachowski, City Attorney.
Woody Gontina.
Jim Allison.
Mayor Mike Fournier.
And I'm the chairperson, Gary Casada. The first order of business, before we get to the first order of business on the approval of the meeting minutes, does anybody, I guess we should clarify, some people may not know this, we only had two new business items on the agenda tonight. One of them got withdrawn, so there is only one public hearing tonight, and because I see that there's plenty of people here who want to probably talk on non-agenda items, I'm going to suggest that we move our public hearing forward so that petitioner can come, have his hearing, and then leave, and then we'll spend time with the public comment. Any comment on that? Any objection to that?
Do you need that in the form of a motion?
If I do, are you interested in making one?
I will make just that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Gontina. The motion is to move the public hearing ahead of the public comment, and we have a motion by Mr. Esprey and a second by Mr. Gontina. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, hearing none, we're switching the order of the agenda. All right, first thing on the agenda then is the approval of the meeting minutes for July 11th, 2023. Any discussion of this issue, comment, questions by the commissioners, or motion?
I'll move to approve the July 11, 2023 minutes.
Motion by Mr. Gontina to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Beakey. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote by voice. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, so having switched up the order, the first order of business is the public hearing on rezoning of multifamily residential planned unit development at Greenfield Road, south of 13 Mile. I don't see an address here. Is the petitioner present? We're looking for the Baker Properties and Plunkett and Cooney.
Petitioner and our team are here this evening.
Please come forward and tell us why you are entitled to relief you seek. You know what? I forgot to ask you about it.
That's okay.
All right. You know what? I'm going to have the petitioner just hang on a second. Mr. Twink, don't leave, but Mr. Twink, just introduce this to us, please.
Well, very briefly, as you indicated, this is a request to rezone a vacant lot, undeveloped parcel on Greenfield Road. The common address, I believe, is referenced as 23051 Greenfield. It is just south of West 13 Mile Road, just south of Public Alley and a parking lot. It is currently zoned multifamily residential. The petitioner is proposing to rezone it to planned unit development. That is at their request, as it is zoned multifamily and the project is considering multifamily. They could have also chosen to submit it as a simple site plan review and approval, and then went to seek whatever variances they needed from this Zoning Board of Appeals. But they've chosen to ask for your consideration under the plan unit development provision. They are proposing to construct a two-story building with a total of 12 one-bedroom multifamily dwelling units. The overall height would be just over 30 feet and 8 inches. There'd be 6 dwelling units on each floor. As you can see on the submitted site plan, the parking area would be to the east or rear of the building off Greenfield. There would be 2 one-way driveways, one on the north and one on the south. There would be some 16 parking spaces located to the east. They are also proposing rain gardens, landscaping in the west front yard setback, as well as pervious pavers. The plan on the document indicates impervious, but I think their intent is pervious pavers in those areas, as well as electrical vehicle charging stations. At least the write-up says 2, the site plan depicts 1. And then solar rooftop panels as well are identified on the site plan. One of the items that we've highlighted in regards to the request is that the building driveways add up to some 121 feet, while the survey is slightly under 120. So there's some adjustments they would have to make between this preliminary site plan and PUD and the final to determine that discrepancy. One of the other items is that the building entrances are depicted along Greenfield based on the first floor site or the first floor plan. There is no direct access from the parking area into the unit, so you'd have to go around the building to the Greenfield side to enter, just for your information. Fire marshal has indicated the turning radiuses are adequate, provided the building is sprinkled as indicated. One of the other items was in regards to removal of existing trees and the replacement of those trees. I will point out in the staff report there are a couple of places where it references 10 trees being installed, and I believe there's only 6 on the site plan, and that's what's listed in the table is 6 new ones. Based on the ordinance requirements and the size of the trees being proposed, they're deficient some 185 inches of required trees, or the number of trees. Based on the fee assessment that was established in the ordinance, they would be required, if you impose that, of a payment of some $37,000 in addition to what's being submitted. The last thing I will point out on it is starting on page 7 of the staff report and going to the top of page 8, there are a list of the deviations that are referenced. Some of those I have already touched on in my overview. One of the other items I would point out for clarification is the parking spaces are indicated to be at 45-degree design, but they dimension out or configure out to be at 60-degree design. So there's some discrepancy that needs to be clarified between the preliminary review and the final. I won't go through all of the listed deviations. I think I've touched on several of them. If there's questions on those, I'd be happy to address them. Again, this is put together as a preliminary planned unit development for your consideration, which means the petitioner would have 6 months to come back and submit revisions based on any items you've identified or staff's identified that you impose as contingencies. I think with that, I'll stop and see if there's any questions or you want me to clarify items in the staff report.
Are there questions for Mr. Twing from anybody on the panel? Okay, seeing none, back to you, Mr. Cowan. Tell us why your client is entitled to this relief.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us this evening. I'm always worried when we're the only one on the agenda, but I think we'll be treated fair as always. We do have our entire team here tonight that I want to introduce. First, the owner of Baker Properties, Rudy Cachette. And Rudy, born, raised in Royal Oak, graduate of Lockman, Churchill, and Kimball, so that reveals a little bit of your age. He's lives here now. He's built 30 brand new single-family homes in the last 12 years. here in the city and substantially renovated another 20, so he's very familiar with the city, with residential neighborhoods, but has this project on Greenfield for your consideration. And also, we're pleased to have tonight with our architects of record, GAV Associates, both Dorian Moore and Mark Nikita, and they'll be up in a second. So we're going to do a little bit of a tag team for you. We are making a very modest request for a 12-unit project. This is what we call a classic infill project. It's land maybe that's left over or land that could have been used for a project but wasn't, as you're very familiar. The corner of that southeast corner of 13 Mile and Greenfield has a 7-Eleven. There's an alley, then there's a parking lot, then there's this vacant space, which is about 120 by 120, and then there's 2 apartment buildings. Why this space wasn't used for one of those, the second apartment building, Alexander Place, I don't know the answer to that. We've asked, nobody seems to know. So there was left with this piece of property, and again, it's a classic infill project, and we think it's perfectly suited for this particular piece of property. It's a vacant and isolated site that's begging for redevelopment, and we think we'll do that before it reaches eyesore status, which is kind of where it's at right now. As Tim has pointed out, there are some deviations that we need, but that's typical of infill projects on a small site. This is targeted for working class people. They're single family or studio apartments, primarily in connection, as you know, many people who work at Beaumont, now Corewell Health, live in many of the apartments in the vicinity. Some of those buildings are pretty tired and worn. We think that a new build would add some excitement, add some splash to the area, and hopefully some of the other apartments will do an upgrade, which we think, again, is sorely needed. We don't see any impact on the surrounding properties. The neighborhood to the east will be divided by a fence, as is consistent with what occurs behind the other 2 apartment buildings. So there's no ingress or egress. I believe it's Elwood Street. There's no impact on that street. We don't have any lighting issues. The photometric study shows that any lights we have will stay on our side of the property. And again, I don't see any impact on the neighborhood to the east at all, nor to the commercial properties to the north. I think everyone will be able to peacefully coexist. That being said, at this time, I'm going to ask our architects to come up and do an overview, and then I'll wrap up and have things for your consideration. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Introduce yourself for the record.
Thanks for having us. Just a bit of a clarification. We're partnering with GAV, so we're partners with Archive DS in Detroit. And so I'm president of Archive DS, Mark Nikita.
I'm Dorian Moore. I'm vice president.
So just to be clear, we're partnering with GAV. We're collectively working on this together. So we're representing the design team collectively. Just a couple things. I just want to give a few points of, as part of the overview, which is really important. We see every building that we work on as part of the urban context. Very important that we look at the neighborhood, we look at the adjacencies, and we look at the precedent that's there. The kinds of development that's in the adjacent areas, down the street, across the street, down the block, behind, and all around. Because we see any building that we do as part of the overall context. We've analyzed carefully the kinds of buildings that are along 13 Mile at the edge of the neighborhood there that are multifamily, from essentially the hospital all the way to Greenfield. There's a series of small infill apartment buildings. They're mostly 2 stories. In many cases, they're 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 units or what have you. There are a couple buildings with a court or something. And the parking's in the back. They're built to the street with a little bit of green in the front. And around the corner on Greenfield, the same thing. We have a series of apartment buildings that are along Greenfield, again, parking in the rear, Buildings are 2 stories. They all run along the side street. They're along the street facing Greenfield. And this is our context. Behind are the residential single-family neighborhood, but that's behind across the south field, mostly commercial with a little bit of residential, and then commercial to the north as well. So we've analyzed that carefully, and the building that we have conceptualized here for a review is one that we feel fits in with this context, that is actually of the family of buildings that are already there. And that's really what we've based this on. So it's very much in accordance to that in our thinking. And it's a tight site. It's about 1/3 of an acre. It's a very busy site. As you know, it's right in front of 13 Mile in Greenfield. A lot of car traffic, a lot of activity going on there. It's a very active site. We do feel that this would be, what we consider to be missing middle housing that is really not common in the sense that it's multifamily, it's a little bit smaller, and I think it can really accommodate some of the housing shortage that we have of this type of housing, generally smaller and multifamily. So that's the overview, if you will. We feel that it fits nicely as an enhancement to this neighborhood, but it also fits in with the general context of what we think is the housing condition in Royal Oak overall.
So just to add to that, the project that we're proposing is one that we feel fits a specific need within the community at large and in that area. Something that is smaller, that is of that context, and something that provides, as Mark had mentioned, missing middle housing, or housing that you typically don't find the scale of in today's development. Most developments are much larger. We're proposing something that's smaller, more intimate, and can have an identity for the people who are going to live there, and also has a lower impact on the community as a whole, while at the same time adding to the vitality of the community and the options for people who would like to rent within the area. And so really we're here to answer any of your questions in regards to the project. We feel that it addresses a need in the community, and we feel that the elements that we've added to the project from a sustainability standpoint and from a standpoint of understanding the context make it a very good addition to the community.
I would add only one thing to the community benefits guidelines that you have in place, which we carefully analyzed and looked through and identified a whole series of things that we thought would be even on this very tight site, and it is definitely a tight site, and there's a lot of opportunities to do things, but on this site it's actually, because of the size of it, it's relatively tight to do. But we've worked hard to identify and gone through the list of your guidelines and included as many things as we thought would be appropriate and possible, frankly, in this small, tight context. And you seen on the list in a bit, I think, as Mr. Twain put together a sort of a series of those points: the rain gardens, the walkability, the density. We're looking at charging stations. We're looking at solar panels. As many of the things that we can to make it adhering to not only your guidelines, but obviously a smart building as much as it can be for a small sort of missing middle type project.
So just a couple of issues to wrap up our presentation. So first of all, I'm glad that Mark went into some detail on the compliance that we believe we have with the guidelines established by the City Commission for Environmental Sustainability, and also supporting workers' housing goals. We're not into the 80% AMI and the reduction, but we believe that the size of these units will make them more affordable for workers. I do want to touch on the tree issue because we're somewhat surprised to see the amount of $37,000 as a possible fee. So we would like to, and it is within the Planning Commission and certainly within the jurisdiction of the City Commission when we go there, to seek a change to that. We certainly understand the spirit of the ordinance. We think that, by the way, these are box elders and silver maples. According to the landscaper, we have, they are not healthy trees at all. They probably, 3 of them have grown significantly because there's never been development on the site. And as a result, that, added up the inches or circumference to a pretty significant amount for such a small site. We believe that you should take into account the fact that we are meeting several environmental sustainability goals and features that we are providing, and those costs should be taken into effect, and those costs do exceed $37,000 for all those different costs. And at the same time, we recognize environmental stewardship, and Mr. Cachette would be more than willing to contribute $5,000 to the tree fund, but the $37,000 is very significant for such a small project, and we would ask your relief in that regard. We would also ask that you approve us in such a manner tonight that we could go to the City Commission for our next stop. We have actually submitted, if you want to say, revised plans that addressed all the issues that is in the staff report and some of the things that Tim Thwing brought up. But we understand there wasn't time for a full review and to give it to you, so you're still dealing with the first plan, which is substantially the same, but there were some, I would call them informational items that needed to be corrected, such as we have identified there are 2 charging stations instead of 1, and actually the revised plan shows 8 trees on the site because there was reference made to have a tree in the rear near the parking area, and we agree with that. So we think all those things are more informational, and unfortunately in today's world we're kind of a little bit on a tight time schedule, and I'm sure that between the staff and the City Commission, any of those informational issues will certainly be taken care of at the next level. So we respectfully ask that you approve us as a preliminary plan to go to the City Commission. We believe we meet the conditions for a planned unit development. As I pointed out in our letter, we also believe we meet many of the goals of your guidelines for community benefits, and we are respectfully asking for your approval this evening. And we stand ready to answer any questions.
Are there questions for the petitioners? Any over here? Okay, I have one. It's a 3-part question. As long as you already did the drawings, can you inform the commission here about how you address some of the things in Mr. Twing's report? For instance, you've got the site, the amount of site greenery, landscape is one I'd be interested to know how you dealt with that. And the parking maneuvering aisle, how did you deal with that? Can you give us some information on what you did?
Sure, I'll talk about that. We, starting with the greenery, if you take a look at the site plan, we added more greenery in the rear on the surrounding areas of the parking lot. You can see the triangular areas that are adjacent to each stretch of parking. We added that as green space in. We added, I believe, 2 trees at the rear of the property. And regarding the maneuvering lanes, we had discussions with the fire marshal about the ingress and egress from the site. And so that is fine. We revised the notations of the length and width of the parking stalls and provided a handicap stall. And I'm trying to think the other issue that you had brought up, Mr. Casada.
Well, I would be interested in the outdoor spaces there. You've got balconies on the second floor and what is it, patios on the west side for the first floor?
Yes, at the first floor there's you just passed it, but on the first floor there's a walkway that is that can serve as an outdoor patio, but it's mostly a walkway underneath the balconies at the second floor level.
Okay, so both sets of units have outdoor space.
Access to the outside.
All right.
And we actually articulated the green space in the site plan a bit to increase the size of the rain gardens by taking out some of the green adjacent to the building and put it into the rain garden, make it a little bit bigger. So it's just a little bit of an articulation, not any less green space. It's just it was oriented a little differently so we could get the rain garden to be a little bit larger and have a little bit more of a tree root area for the tree root. So that was a later articulation that we did. It's a very minor one in the front where the green is. That it was beyond the deadline to add that revision for tonight's meeting, but it's basically done. So that's all part of what we would consider revising or having revised from what we had.
Okay, and you also mentioned, somebody mentioned a photometric plan. That's not included in our package. I don't see any lighting on your plans here. You've done that?
Yes, there is I think we had a lighting cut sheet. And the size of this site and the type of lighting, the throw from that lighting is not, it's more of a wall wash for the area, so it's not going to affect adjacent properties.
Okay, well, that's what we want to know in the plans.
Right.
We have that.
Yeah.
We have that
Okay,
shown.
we don't have it here, but you're saying you've done it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any other, Mr. Cantina?
A few questions, actually. First, I'll start with on the rain gardens themselves. Are there, did you do any calcs to size those rain gardens, or was that essentially just, space that was left over after design? You decided to call it a rain garden, but it's not necessarily designed as a rain garden. It's more just labeled as one.
Do you want to?
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, it's designed as a rain garden. The capacity, we haven't identified the full capacity and what we would be able to put there. Our intention is to create as much as possible in the rain garden and address whatever we have to do in the overflow underneath if possible or as needed. But the calculations haven't been done at this point because it's a preliminary situation. So we don't have the full water runoff, and then the engineering hasn't been done on that. But our intention is to create it as a rain garden, have the kind of plants that would be appropriate in there, and to accommodate as much water as we can in the logical size that we have to use for the rain garden itself.
Was I scaling the plans correctly, and that each one of those areas is roughly about 200 square feet? 5 by 40 or so is what?
No, actually, that's part of the revision. Is actually what we've done is to make where the trees are, to make those full rain gardens as opposed to the edges. So that's what I was getting at, is the rethinking of where we would put a rain garden, how we would articulate that vegetation. The idea is that if you see the strips of green along the building, we moved those into the rain garden, make them bigger, and made the rain garden where the trees are, except for we moved the trees to the side so that you have an area for the tree and then an area for a rain garden, then the rain garden in a tree. Okay. So it's just a reworking to some degree. Still have a rain garden, it's actually bigger than...
Different than this plan that we see.
Yeah, it's a bit different than the plan, right, because it's been revised, but it will actually be a bigger rain garden than what we show here. And it will accommodate, it'll have no less amount of green space. It's just articulated differently.
Sure. The pervious pavers in the parking lot, are those just in the stalls only, not necessarily in the drive lanes, is that right?
Correct.
The next question is about the solar. It mentions in your list that the solar has been included to handle the site lighting needs. I counted just a handful of exterior lights on the exterior of the building. Have there been any calculations done for this in terms of how those panels are actually going to be utilized for that site lighting? A couple of concerns that I have is, one, I don't think there's any relationship between the amount of energy that's needed for that site lighting and to the panels that are indicated on the drawings. In addition to the fact that if it's for site lighting, which is at night, the panels themselves are not going to be producing anything at night. So I'd have a question whether there's actually a battery backup plan for this as well. And then the last question would be, it appears all the panels are on the east-facing roof of the building. which is probably the least effective roof for the building to actually generate power to power anything. So I guess my question about the solar is if it's more just an afterthought and put those up there and you hope to cover site lighting with it, or again, is there calculations or things that have been done to really make that a worthwhile element that's been included versus just sort of throwing it on the drawings?
Well, I guess there's two issues. One is we haven't done the specific calculations for that, but the amount of solar panels that are included is based on the ability to be able to generally handle those lighting. But if there's enough capacity after that to handle other things on site or in the building. But at this point, we don't have the numbers to allocate that in every instance. So the lighting is sort of the first choice. And we would assume that similar to most solar panel lighting, that the energy is stored and can still be used at night. So I don't think that that's an issue.
Okay. Then my last question is related to your water efficiency statement here. Incorporate appliances that maximize water efficiency. To what standard what standard are you using to gauge efficiency, or whether or not you're actually using appliances that are more or less efficient than others? Are you using a water sense label or some other standard as the spec for these water efficient appliances?
I guess we would look to the typical Energy Star type standards that would be placed on any typical appliance. I'm not sure if you need anything beyond that for residential appliances.
Well, I guess water efficiency and energy efficiency are two different things, so that's sort of where my question lies. Is the statement specifically relates to maximize water efficiency. There are standards available to be able to track that, or a metric to weigh that against. I wasn't sure if that had been thought about yet. That's all I have for now.
Any other questions for the petitioner? I do have one more, if you don't mind. It's not unusual that in an apartment complex, the tenants have to park in the parking lot. They walk a ways to get to their front door and up the stairs. But in this case, you have it set up so that the tenants will have to walk around through the 15-foot drive lanes to get to the front door. And I'm just wondering what your experience is with that. Is there safety concerns for that?
Actually, that's another thing that we've revised on the drawing.
So if you look on you had the site plan up, that was actually perfect with
Go back to the site plan if we can. Yeah. Thank you.
So if you look on the north and south sides of the building, starting at the east, there's that walkway, that 3-foot walkway will wrap around the sides of the building. And what it is, it's just a scoring in the concrete drive to articulate a walking path, a 3-foot wide walking path for people to walk on. Same level so that that drive can serve pedestrians in their designated area, but also vehicles traveling through. So there's a 3-foot section and a 12-foot 4-inch section. And the 15-foot 4 overall can be used for emergency vehicles. So it handles all three situations. The typical 12-foot dimension will handle just regular cars coming in and out of the site.
Okay, I guess my question was what's your experience with that?
I was just going to answer your question. So we've done this a number of times where we create walkways in it, because we actually have a real concern about creating pathways or not creating pathways and making it so that pedestrians have to walk where essentially cars are, or in the car path. So this is a 15-foot wide drive, which is actually, for a typical lane, is easily 5 feet more than it really needs to be in terms of spaces. Typically, lanes in streets are between 10 and 12 feet. That's, streets wherever you're at, they're usually 10 to 12 feet. That's what a lane is. So this is essentially a lane, north and south, or east and west on the north side and the south side. So we're taking up that extra bit and scoring it at the same level to indicate to the car, to the driver as well as to the pedestrian, that this is a walking path. But it could be driven on, obviously, if there was, any need. But it's designated to be a walking path. And we've done that in projects where this situation has happened, where we're trying to accommodate the pedestrian path and designate it physically so that it's recognized that this is where people are supposed to walk and this is where cars are supposed to be. So that's the way that we've done it in the past. It's not uncommon in these kinds of situations that you establish a path, but it has sort of a flexible circumstance in the reality of how it can be used. And that allows that comfort level where the pedestrian can sort of walk around. It's not also uncommon to have, especially in older buildings, to have entries in the front, especially in townhouses and things where you only have an opportunity for an entrance in the front, so people do have to walk around. It's not uncommon historically in buildings of multi-unit that this is the case. So it's sort of a it's not an atypical situation in many ways. It is in some cases not looked at as common, but in the historical nature of housing, it is actually somewhat common.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? I see one there.
I guess talking about the pedestrians, a quick follow-up on that, because I see the units are tight, and of course there's a wish to have fewer parking spaces, which is great. Was there any consideration, I know it's small, for any bike parking other than people taking the bikes into their unit, which of course helps alleviate something with regards to cars? And by chance, do you know what the nearest bus stop is that would be going to Beaumont? I went to the site, but I neglected to look for that point.
To answer your second question, I don't personally know where the closest bus stop is. But as far as bike parking, we do show bike parking there. I think the cursor is showing the location.
So we've designated there. It's an area right behind along the walkway where we would establish a bike parking zone. That was intended right from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think there is a 13.
Mm-hmm.
I do take this. I do take the fast bus downtown oftentimes. Where my home is in Birmingham and our office is downtown, so I take the fast bus. So I'm pretty familiar with the system. I'm pretty sure I don't take 13 Mile often. I don't think I've really ever taken 13, but I think there's a 13 Mile that runs along there, and logically Greenfield would be a stop, but I can't say for absolute sure.
Well, I've lived there for quite some time, and there's definitely a bus that runs northbound on Greenfield and makes a right turn onto 13 Mile to address the hospital and other areas.
Great. And I'm sure there would be a stop nearby, given that's an important intersection, 13 and Greenfield.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, so this is a public hearing, so I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience would like to speak on this agenda item. I see somebody right here.
Good evening. My name is Trish Oliver. I've lived in Royal Oak for almost 40 years. Regarding the project on Greenfield Road, south of West 13 Mile, it's only 12 units, unlike the 44 proposed at 4704 South Rochester Road. But to go from the 3 permissible at the site to 12 units is still outrageous. You need to reduce the number of units and the density, leaving room for more green space and compliance with the parking requirements. Also, incorporate the mature shade trees on the site in order to be environmentally responsible. When you have less units and conform to the 25-foot required setback rather than the 15-foot one that the developers are proposing, the footprint will be smaller, which will make the parking requirement manageable. If the proposal goes through as is, it will be buildings, roofs, or cement rather than green space on this site. Also, I do want to mention that it was stated that this proposal appears to have no impact on the neighbors behind it in Elwood. And I know that we have several residents from that street here. I know that on the site there is an amazing tree, and since we're the Royal Oak, the city of trees, I think we really want to be good stewards for these natural resources that are in our care. There are, on page 6 of your preliminary PUD plan, it says that according to the petitioner survey, 7 mature deciduous trees would be removed from the site that range in size from 10 inches diameter at breast height to 48 inches. 48 inches in diameter is an enormous tree. It's a beautiful tree. I believe the gentleman said it was a box elder. It provides quite a lot of shade. It would be nice to see this go from 3 units, which is permissible, to maybe 4 units, and you could have some interesting duplexes that would add some character to the neighborhood. I know that Elwood is already bearing the burden of a natural gas facility at Elwood and 13 Mile. That is not shrouded or hidden in any way. It's shiny steel. And then to add this insult on the west side to the properties that abut this proposal is, I think it could destabilize this very steady street. I know some of the people on Elwood, their grandparents have lived in homes, and they've been on this street for entire lifetimes. So while we may be bringing forward rain gardens, an electric charging station, keep in mind that we have an amazing tree on the site that will be sacrificed for this project. And in addition, we want to take great care of the neighbors who have lived in Elwood and spent their entire lives there. We want to accommodate new people, but we want to take care of the people who are already there and have equity in their home and in our community. Thank you. And with my last 20 seconds, I just want to acknowledge these great kids who their wonderful parents have brought them here. They are our new citizens of Royal Oak. Their behavior's been perfect. I know swapping the agenda items pushes them closer to bedtime, and they're doing great. So thank you.
So I sometimes have to remind people this is much more like a court proceeding than a football game. So we don't really, the decorum here is not cheering and clapping or booing or anything like that. So I would ask the folks to respect that. Thank you. This gentleman over here.
Thank you for your time. We were lifelong residents of Royal Oak. My great-grandfather moved here in 1912 at 12 Mile and Campbell. I grew up at 13 in Rochester. My grandfather bought on Elwood in 1934, and we are directly impacted. My father inherited the property in 82. I will inherit it from my father. So Elwood is in my heart. It's been my lifelong place that I've grown up. With all that said, the only business that applies to you is zoning. We have lived with the apartments that are just to the south of this proposed property. The wood fence that they're proposing, we put up. The apartment buildings did not put that up. We put that up on our side to shield the apartments that were built there. What we have put up with, excuse me, but people get out of their cars and relieve themselves facing our property. We hear them yell to the upstairs apartments, bring my groceries up. All of these things are all from a wood fence that we put up. They did not. At a minimum, I would ask the City of Royal Oak zoning, any multi-tenant places that are built, please demand a masonry fence. We do not need the sight of that parking lot. We do not need the sounds from that parking lot. I honestly believe if you want to bring a multi-tenant place next to a residential place, please demand a masonry wall. Please. As a zoning board, I ask that as a resident that's put up with apartment buildings in our backyards. As far as adding extra spaces, if that space is only zoned for 4 units, 12 is too much. There's just not parking. What are they going to do? Every people that have 2 residents in that apartment need 2 vehicles. Where are 24 cars going to go? They're going to come onto my street. If they have a car that's running bad, what are they going to do? They're going to park it on my street on Elwood and walk around the corner to get into their apartment. we will lose parking on our street because they need a place to park an extra car. Anyway, as far as business goes, again, my main points are, please have a masonry fence. If the zoning is only 4 units, there's not room for 12. There's just not room. So thank you very much for your time. I hope I addressed only business here and no emotions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify a statement the gentleman said, we are not the zoning board. We are the planning commission. And our work up here involves far more than changing zoning. Matter of fact, we don't change zoning. We can make a recommendation to a petitioner to take their questions to the zoning board, and they make the zoning change. We don't make the zoning change, we just make a recommendation.
Wonderful. Well, I still hope my points are valid.
Yes, I just want to make sure. I don't want people thinking that we are the zoning board, we don't change the zoning. Okay.
All right. This is over here in the back. So last time I forgot to invite the speaker to introduce themselves, but I won't forget now. Please introduce yourself if you wish, and then give us your presentation.
I would. My name is Timothy Wider. I am the direct neighbor to these proposed units. I own the parking lot directly to the north and the physical therapy office to the northeast. So both of my properties are impacted by this. As the two previous speakers said, 12 units is just too much in this space. It's crammed in, there's not adequate parking. And coming from a medical professional where I am so sensitive to the parking needs of a business and to a residential street, there's not enough. 1.3 parking spaces for 12 units is going to be, my parking lot is their overflow. I absolutely cannot afford any additional cars parked in my lot other than my patients and my staff. I have patients that come in wheelchairs, walkers, some come in via EMS to seek our services, and it is absolutely critical that I do not have to compete with outside issues with parking. And being that my lot is directly to the north of that, as the previous speaker said, they park on Elwood, walk through the alley to these units, or they're going to park right in my lot and walk around the corner, whichever is the shortest distance. So directly impacted. I've been a business owner at that location in Royal for 8 years. I think we've done a tremendous amount to beautify that space, to bring life and vitality to that intersection. The building was a abandoned auto parts shop when we took it over, and I think we've done quite a lot in the 8 years I've been there. I've been the owner of the property for the past 3 years. We deal with regular issues, as I said, with parking, but also with pedestrians relieving themselves in our alley, relieving themselves on my building. I've had Royal Oak PD out many times in regard to issues with people in our parking lot and issues with the safety of my staff and my patients. And I don't think I know that having a 12-unit, 1.3 parking space per unit jammed in the space is going to have a detrimental effect to my business. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Back here. Good evening. Please introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Carolyn Mertz. Can I ask a question? Because I may have misheard something.
You can ask a question. I don't know what answer you get, but go ahead.
Did you say you were going to be planting silverleaf maples or taking them out?
Pardon me?
Did you say you were going to be planting silverleaf maples or taking them out?
The trees on the site are silver maples and box elders, and those will be removed.
Okay, you're not going to be planting silverleaf maples.
We showed honey locust. Yeah, honey locust trees.
Okay, I lived in Warren, and they're beautiful trees, but they wreak havoc on any water source. So that was my only comment. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak right here on the Greenfield project?
Good evening. Mike Seville, 1105 Ottawa, Royal Oak, Michigan. Couple questions about the site plan I guess I don't understand. You said this was a preliminary report? Am I correct in that?
It could be, yes. I think we have the authority to either approve it or ask them to come back.
So it's not complete, right? They have some information that they didn't have ready tonight, right?
It looks like it.
Okay, let me bring up a question, okay? When I pulled a permit for my electrical in my residential house, I got put off 3 days because the inspector said that commercial properties take up precedence over residentials for inspections. So when he finally came, he said, I can't approve it because you're missing a fire plug out of the back of the bottom of the firebox, and you don't have a cable ground to your water meter. So I told him, I said, well, if I take care of that, will you approve that today? And I promise I'll take care of it. And he said, I'll tell you what, why don't you approve it, take care of the work on the plans that I submitted, and call me back out and we'll talk about it. Second of all, I understand the box odors. You said there's a patio deck or a sidewalk, can be used as a sidewalk. Is that correct? Anybody know how a box a locust looks? It has 1 to 4 inches of thorns. Anybody think about that?
I had one in my backyard. It was a nightmare to mow my lawn. It would scratch me up really bad, and the leaves were really small. They're hard to rake.
Yeah, okay. So I guess a couple questions is, you want, these people have taken up a lot of their time to come and listen to this. I feel a little disheartened that a developer would come with only a partial plan. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see a hand back there. Good evening.
Hello, Mr. Casada. Commissioners, my name is Tom Halleck. As a lifelong government employee and a one-time commissioner and a 13 years on the Planning Commission, 9 chairing it, I consider ethics in government to be really critical. One of the things about being an elected official, and you do get ethics training on it, is if somebody donates $50 to $100 to your campaign, that is not considered a conflict of interest. And you do not have to recuse yourself from any meetings involving those people. However, when somebody is donating hundreds or thousands and arranging fundraisers where their large amounts of money are being handed over, you then must recuse yourself from anything that those people bring in front of you. That's called ethics. Well, it so happens the attorney for this project is a major contributor, and so are many of the clients that he brings in front of here. And he just held a major fundraiser for the mayor at D'Amatos, where large amounts of money were raised. That means the mayor should be recusing himself from this meeting. And when you recuse yourself, you do so at the beginning of the agenda item and say, I have a conflict of interest, I need to recuse myself, and leave the room. And in a rather shocking lapse of ethics, the mayor did not do that and is sitting here knowing that he's got a major ethical conflict. And I would bring this up with our new city attorney. Now that you are aware that this conflict exists, are you going to do your duty and advise him that he needs to leave the room? Or are you going to ignore this lapse of ethics? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, over here in the mask.
What are we doing?
So, yes.
Yeah. What happens now?
What's the answer to that?
We're taking public comment.
You want me to ask the question?
You mean you're not going to leave?
You want me to ask the question?
What does the lawyer say?
What does the lawyer say?
I'm going to call up for public comment on the Greenfield project. That's what this is. Gary. What we're doing. I'm sorry.
So is it,
All right.
so it's already cited?
Hold on. Order. Hold on. Order. Do we have a question over here?
Yeah, I'll ask the question to the city attorney. I mean, I think a personal attack on you know, a member of this body and this board.
That's not
Order.
I don't recall, Chairman, I don't recall interrupting anybody at public comment. I thought I had the floor.
What's your price?
What do you think?
Okay. Order. We're going to end up taking a break here if we don't have order.
Calling the person up.
We don't have order.
You had a question.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak and trying to control what seems to be a pretty disruptive crowd. I will ask the question.
Order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will ask the city attorney for clarification. Are there any ethics violations for any member of this board, elected or not, for receiving contributions to any campaign at any time, ever?
No, I would say this, that a board member on this board, the Planning Commission, would have a conflict on an item before this board if they had any type of particular pecuniary interest or conflict of interest with the particular item. The fact that there happens to be a presenter that has raised money on behalf of a political candidate that has nothing to do with a particular request does not create a conflict of interest. It creates a conflict.
Hey, order,
It creates a conflict if there is a direct benefit to a board member from a particular item that this board is considering. Benefit being pecuniary, family members involved. If the mayor has any family members involved in this plan, any family members that might be, or particular pecuniary interests in the actual presenters that are here tonight, the companies that are proposing these preliminary site plan for the PUD developments. So if you stand to gain or lose financially, or any family or friends or close family or family members would gain or lose from that, from a decision, and that applies to this entire board, that I would expect that would ask to recuse themselves on anything that would directly affect them from a pecuniary standpoint or another like financial gain or loss from either considering or voting on any item that becomes before it. But clearly, having a fundraiser for a member and that person appears before this board doesn't create a conflict because it doesn't relate to the particular consideration of this item, and it doesn't relate to a particular pecuniary interest of this particular item or the entities bringing this item for consideration for this board. For any board member, that applies across the board for any board in the entire city.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rachowski. So the idea, Mr. Chairman, I thought I had the floor. Am I mistaken?
You still have the floor.
Okay. So I understand people are passionate, but we have to have respectful decorum, okay? And that begins and ends with not interrupting public meetings, okay? So just to follow up on that, clearly, for essentially what is a volunteer position for all of us up here, there's no clear financial benefit for having a fundraiser for any candidate up here or any person that's ever run for office, because in the case, the position that we all hold up here essentially is a voluntary position. Correct? The money doesn't go to any of us. It goes to campaigns that are clearly marked and disclosed for the public to see.
Correct, Mr. Mayor, and quite frankly, the direct questions to any member on this commission would be in the form of, do you have any relationship with the petitioner, this property, or the companies presenting here tonight? Do you stand to have any pecuniary gain or loss or do you have any direct ties to those particular petitioners or this particular piece of property or project? And that applies to your family as well, and whether you have any related business interests. And so that's up to you to disclose if any of those business interests, or you stand to profit or not profit, or have a pecuniary interest in this particular presentation, or any of the companies or individuals presenting this. And I have not heard that that's the case, but again, that is on each board member to disclose if they have a particular conflict of interest And I'm speaking very generally, but it could be more specific if need be at a future meeting with a legal opinion. But generally, that's the standards used to determine if there's a conflict of interest or not.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and to be absolutely clear, there's no conflict of interest from this side of the table. So now that we have that clarification, I think that the meeting can proceed, Chairman.
Okay, and I want to, before we proceed, I want to remind people to be fair to the petitioners, the neighbors, and other people who have an interest in the Greenfield project. That's what we're talking about. So we're not, if people, also to be fair to the people who want to talk about things that are not agenda item, we want to get to that, but we're talking about the Greenfield project, and I called on the woman back there with the mask, and if you want to talk about the Greenfield project, you're next.
Well, that's what I'm
You are
talking
not
about.
next. That person is next. Please introduce yourself. You got 3 minutes.
Yes. My name is Carol Rash, and I certainly don't stand up here and claim to be an architect or a design expert, but just as a citizen of Royal Oak since 1985. I paid close attention to this presentation tonight, and I am just kind of curious on the drawing, why the parking, why the entrance to the building is on the Greenfield side. I just wonder if it would be better if the entrance to the building was next to the parking lot as opposed to having to walk around the building and then circling in from Greenfield. It seems to me like it might be a risk to have people walking right next to where the cars are pulling in and out. And I just wonder if it's safer for people that are elderly or female tenants. If you park your car at night and you're carrying in groceries, that's a lot of walking between your car and end up being in your apartment. So I think it might lessen slip and falls in the line with traffic, especially during our Michigan winters. It'll be safer at night, especially for the elderly and female tenants. There's less difficulty for tenants carrying in groceries, personal items, briefcases, those moving in and out of the apartments. And then also, there's not walking right next to a very busy road, Greenfield. I don't know what the speed limit is on Greenfield, but if I had young children like these folks up here, I would probably not opt to live there just because of children walking right next to a busy road to get into the apartments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Right there in the blue shirt.
Turquoise, but.
Okay, close enough. Please introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Michael Maffetone. I live at 3371 Elwood. I have direct impact from this project negatively. Okay, my house sits back on the lot, 14 feet, less than 14 feet from the lot line. Okay, and there's going to be parking in there, coming in and out every morning, starting up their vehicles, talking, shutting, coming in, sitting there. The exhaust's going to be coming onto my property, into my windows. It said there was not going to be any impact because it was an isolated situation here where it was isolated. Well, it's not isolated. I'm like 14 feet away from, my house itself. The property line's right there. And they're talking about putting things there. I got a list, and I know you have a time limit. I wasn't expecting that.
I read the list.
Well, I had a list here of things. But now I did email you a copy of my situation here, okay? They said that all the properties were up front of the property lines and no one sits back, there's no interference. My house sits back in the back of the lot. Like I said, there's also a situation where they have this design to have the garbage disposal dumpster sitting in the back wall. That would be 14 feet from my bedroom. 14 feet from my bedroom. In the middle of summer, 12 people putting trash into that container. What's that going to smell like? Who wants to wake up and live in that? My patio is right there. Sit next to that dumpster. What do you think? That's not really very isolated, isn't it? That's very heavy impact. Cars starting up 14 feet from my house, right? With their exhaust running in the middle of the night. People coming in those driveways any hour of the night. Pulling in, lights in, getting out, 2 in the morning, coming from bars, talking loud. 14 feet from my house and my windows. As they pull in that area there, my house sits right there. Their lights are going to come right into my bedroom window. Every morning, every evening, for 7 days a week. Is that impact on my house? Is it? It is. My property value will drop if I ever try to sell a house. My personal existence in that house, livability, will be deteriorated to unacceptable levels. My family and my wife's family have all been in that house 4 generations. 4 generations have owned that property. Okay? And now you're telling me someone comes in with a fly-by-night plan that packed this full of 12 single apartments, and that's not going to influence what's going on here? 12 families packed into a tight area with no parking, like Evan said. You're going to have 16 parking spots instead of 24. You've got 10 variances here that are insanely extreme. You want to have a variance from 3 to 12 people in that area.
You can wrap it up, please.
What's that?
You can wrap it up.
Okay, one other thing, could I hand you some option pictures of what can go there in Berkeley? Okay, okay, thank you.
Sir, if you want to hand them to her, we'll pass them all the way around.
Okay, thanks.
Gary, I've got a question.
These are some pictures of that they built in Berkeley, just down the road, a half a mile. These are things you can build there that does not influence.
Thank you.
And still, in fact, improves the area. I'm not against building, but I would need something built there that can withstand people.
And we got your email with us as well.
Mr. Maffetone, I have a question for you before you walk away.
Okay, yes, sir.
If I'm looking at Google Earth right now, and I got your house in the center of my page. I'm looking at Google Earth right now, and I've got your house, 3371 Elwood, right in the center of the screen. Am I seeing this correctly, that at least better than 50% of the back of your house already butts a parking lot?
That part's the parking lot that's overflow for the dentist, and they don't come in there until, those places are closed during the day. They don't come in until...
Mr. Matheson, I think you've got to stand there to be heard on the recording. But
they do not come in, it's only one, they park away from my house, there's only one car there, and they don't come in, they're not starting up in the morning. Okay? They're not making noise walking to their cars. They're pulling in 9 o'clock or so, 10 o'clock. They're going to the businesses. It has no effect on my house at all. And it sits at the far by the alley. That's not affecting my house.
Okay.
This would affect our property.
Okay, thank you.
Since 1962, 2 doors down from you are 100% right.
Okay,
When
thank
they
you.
plow the snow, they're going to hit your house.
Order, please. Order. It's
And where are they gonna put the snow?
All I asked is if I was seeing this correctly, that better than 50% of the back of your house has a parking lot abutting it. That's all I asked.
Half a section of the parking lot. One thing, it goes the other way. It just goes right down the line.
I simply asked, the back of your property line has got
Yes, I
better
said
than
yes.
50% of the width of your house or
Yes, I did, sir.
has a parking lot. That's
Yes, I
all I
said yes.
asked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a hand way back in the back
Your
there.
house is going to flood when they plow the snow.
Yeah, also flooding.
All right, please introduce yourself if you wish, and you have 3 minutes.
Jean Sarnacki. I'm not a resident of that immediate area, but I've been watching these things recently. And a couple of things I think I'd like to see addressed. We've heard the term workers used to describe likely tenants, people perhaps over at Beaumont, affordable housing, but we've not heard anything about a price point. What is affordable housing for this development? I think that's an important question that needs to be asked. Secondly, I have personal knowledge because I had 2 Ukrainian refugees living with me who just last month moved to housing by Beaumont, and they have a really nice 2-bedroom unit in one of those apartment buildings, kind of, near Coolidge going towards the hospital, and they're paying under $1,200 a month. So in terms of a price point, I just wanted to share that with you in terms of information when we talk about affordable housing, proximity to Beaumont, and what this development is bringing. We don't know that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other members of the public like to, here's on the Greenfield project, right here in the orange. I hope I got the color right.
Yeah, it'd be hard to mistake it.
All right.
My name is Pat Wall. I've been a resident since 1973. Yes, 50 years. I know you think I don't look a day older than 51. But I don't understand something. You said that you're not the zoning board, and yet we know that zoning only allows 4 units there. So how does it happen that they get to come and have 12 units? I don't get it. Don't you talk to each other? I mean...
Well, there are ordinances that address that.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Here in the white shirt. Please introduce yourself if you wish.
My name's Jim Robertson, and I'm basically making a statement from someone who's listening, my attorney. It's basically, it says, if the speakers press the issue and present it as an ethical or moral obligation of the mayor to disclose how much money he's taken from Dennis Cowan, and the entire planning commission board should consider that amount of money and vote on whether he should be allowed to vote or not. Okay? The city attorney's just talking in circles, in our opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak on the Greenfield project right here?
Yes, Rick Karlowski. I just have a question as to why people can just pull this up as a PUD. Why does this not have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals? It's not a change in use whatsoever. It's not a very large project. It seems like somewhat of a venue shop. It's easier to do it here. But this belongs, I mean, with the variants that are coming in, you should be going to the Zoning Board of Appeals and figure out which ones the Citizens Board are willing to accept and not. I don't understand. I don't want to start to get this into a trend of, well, it's kind of hard to get it through the ZBA, so we'll just try it for a PUD and gut all the zoning requirements. No, it should go before. You should, if you want to do it at a PUD, fine, but you should at least require them to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals and get all the variances approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak on the Greenfield project? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the side of the table. And for the commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Twing or the petitioners, the architects, each other? Okay, the public hearing is closed, so I would ask you politely to...
If they have a question for me, I can gladly answer it.
Okay, are you a petitioner?
No, I'm...
Okay, then I'm asking you to stay in order. Thank you. All right. To the panel here. Questions for Mr. Twing, the petitioners, each other, a motion? Mr. Esby.
For Mr. Twing, so the petitioner mentioned that they have dropped off revised site plans. Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. So the petitioner did mention that they dropped off revised site plans to your office?
Yeah, I believe they were submitted on Friday, which was after all cutoffs, after the posting, after the notice, so they haven't been reviewed.
So that was my question. So you haven't had a chance to review and vet them for accuracy of their statements and so on and so forth?
No.
All right, thank you.
All right, Ms. Beakey.
I don't necessarily have a comment or a question right now. I just have a general comment. I guess in my review of both the site plan that was submitted as well as the site itself, and the deviation from the 3 that are permitted under the multifamily versus the 12, I find this to be, again, a little bit too big. It's not leaving enough green space around. And so I have those general concerns even before I heard the comments this evening. So I just wanted to make that comment.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Mr. Grantino.
Yeah, I guess I have comments. So I struggle with this project quite a bit because certainly I appreciate the sustainable elements that have been proposed. However, I'm extremely uncomfortable with how they've been put forward. It's an extremely ambiguous list of things that give me a very low level of confidence on the execution. Those items were, I think, submitted in response to the community benefits guidelines that are part of the PUD process. To that point on the PUD process, it was a choice on the petitioner's part to seek a PUD versus utilize the existing zoning of multifamily. In looking at the existing zoning of multifamily, certainly the type of use is still allowable. There's some square footage considerations that would only allow for the 3 units, but the bigger issue that I have is it doesn't seem like a project that fit within the multifamily standard was contemplated to begin with, because many of the variances for setbacks and whatnot are quite significant in my opinion. And so the petitioner's choice to go with the PUD process, in my opinion, is sort of an attempt to throw out all the standards within the existing multifamily zoning for the multifamily project that they have. And what they put forward is just too ambiguous to me to sort of justify what they're asking for. In looking at the overall project, 30% of that building could probably go away and they'd still be within the setbacks required for multifamily properties. Granted, probably still needs some variances, but would not be subject to the PUD process, wouldn't necessarily be forced to include some of the elements in the project that they are ambiguously including. So I'm really struggling with this project the way it's been presented. I know a lot of the residents that are immediately adjacent have come and expressed some opinions. I don't necessarily agree with the impact that those opinions may have, all of them, but certainly there's going to be an impact to the area. So as of right now, I'm going to have trouble supporting this project based on that.
Okay, Mr. Ellison.
So we're going to be getting new plans. They've submitted new plans and we haven't reviewed them yet. So we're not in a position really to, from my opinion, to address this tonight. But I do want to make a couple of comments. Anytime we're dealing with a development that has a residential neighborhood that butts up to a commercial district, and we have this on 2 sides. We have basically a business district, even though it's mostly residential multifamily, it is a area that generates more traffic and more parking, and it creates more intrusion into the neighborhood. But by the same token, if you buy a house that backs up to one of those, that's got to be expected that that's going to be part of the problem. You're going to have business intrusion to a certain degree next to your house. This has got a particular problem with it, and that is the fact that this home was built, if I researched properly, 3371 Elwood was built in the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken, or darn close to it. And so it's not like a case of someone came in and built a house close to the commercial property. The house was there. And so they bought the house, with the expectation, knowing, as he admits, that it is close to the commercial. So our job up here is to try to look at the plan that's presented to us. The petitioner can propose a planned unit development. He can propose a PUD if he wants. I mean, it's our job to decide whether it's going to happen. I mean, that's what our job here is as the Planning Commission, is to try to see if we can mitigate intrusion, if we can get a good project, mitigate intrusion to the neighborhood, and try to make it work. As I'm looking at this and I'm listening, there's a reason why this property has never been developed. It's too small to be a profitable development, and it's got too many confines to try to expand it so it gets too big. So, you know, we're caught between a rock and a hard place and a very big tree. And, you know, and the tree is in there, and I'm, you know, I love trees, and I don't want to cut a trees, but by the same token, there's property owners' rights. They can take that tree if they want it. And if we give them approval on this project, the tree's going to go. And that's the heartbreak. They tried to mitigate that by adding sustainability issues. We've got sun heating and electrical. I lost my mind.
Solar.
Thank you. So we've got solar on this. We've got electric. They're trying to be proactive in the new society of sustainability. But there's just so many problems with this project. I am very curious to see how they mitigate any of these plans with revised plans. I would not want to make a decision on this, because if I was to vote on this tonight, I couldn't support it because there's too many problems. But I would like to see it come up next month with any chance. They've heard everything we've said tonight. They can see if they can go back and try to mitigate some of those problems and see if we get a better plan. Because I'd like to see that property used for residential development. That's what it's primed for. Everything on both sides of it is residential. I mean, it's just a odd-shaped, small property that is constricted by the placement of a home that backs up to it that creates more problems. And you know, we don't want to exacerbate a problem. We want to try to calm it and make it good. So, so I would hope that we could put this off until next month when we see the new plan submitted.
I'm going to just clarify something with Mr. Twing and council here. So this is a PUD process. So we have statutory standards that we're looking at that are in the staff report at page 8 and 9. And those are the standards that we're looking at. The process here is that we can approve the PUD as a PUD and ask them to come back with another plan with no promises that the plan is going to be accepted at that time. Or we can grant the PUD and accept the plans that are, in this case, incomplete, or we can deny. Those are our options. Yes, Mr. Twain? Council?
Well, the planned unit development process is tied to a site plan. The rezoning itself is tied to a particular site plan, meaning if the Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning to a planned unit development to the City Commission, because your recommendation goes to the City Commission, who has the final say on whether that rezoning and site plan are approved. The site plan is attached to that rezoning, and there's also a development agreement that the City Commission approves at that time that articulates what's included, and how it's addressed, and the time period. So the rezoning in this particular case to a planned unit development is tied to a specific site plan. Staff has written this up and in the provisions in the zoning ordinance as a preliminary plan because some of the items we identified needed more detail on the fencing or the screening, more detail on the enclosure for the refuge enclosure, more detail on the rain garden and how it was built, more detail on other items. If the Planning Commission thinks the plan is acceptable in terms of the number of units and some of the deviations, you can approve it as a preliminary plan subject to bringing back a revised plan addressing your contingencies so that you see what you're recommending to the City Commission. If you're satisfied with what's submitted, then you could recommend approval to the City Commission with contingencies that you would see. Or you can say this is an inappropriate proposal, it's too dense, there's too many units, the setbacks are not adequate, and you could recommend denial. Again, that recommendation would go to the City Commission for its consideration.
All right, and then of course, but we don't have to, right, I understand. We wouldn't accept this plan necessarily, but if we decided to approve, we'd say, we're approving it contingent on you coming back with a plan that meets our specify contingencies. Within 6 months.
Well, you've got to have a preliminary plan with some direction to them as to what you want.
Okay, I just want to clarify what our
Yeah, if you want to recommend in your contingencies changes, you should identify those as part of your.
Okay, understood. Yes, understood.
So,
Mr. Espy,
so we're on
please,
this
I've
side of
asked
the
you to
table.
stay in order. Mr. Espy.
Sir, so if I'm
Okay,
clarifying, you're saying-
I'm not recognizing you. You don't have the floor. Mr. Espy.
So just asked $1 billion question, so we simply cannot table this for a month?
Yes, you can.
Oh, certainly you can
All right,
table it.
yeah, so,
But with what direction?
well, I mean, I'm ready to craft some sort of motion if the board wants to indulge me, and if it fails, it fails, but I think, I don't know if we can get this plan over the finish line or not, but given that we have a lack of information, site plans we haven't had an opportunity to review, I would like to postpone action on this item until next month. And if anybody's interested in making a second on that, then I'll go over some of the things that are on my mind.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Espy to table the petition until next month.
I support.
Support by Mr. Ellison. Okay.
So, well, hold on, Mr. Casada. So in support of this motion, some of the members of the public, I think, made some very, very good points. Why the entrance is not at the rear of the building, because the idea of a scoring along the side of a building that doesn't actually separate pedestrian traffic from incoming car traffic, I think there are inherent conflicts there, and why the building wasn't configured that way is a concern that I have. I think the gentleman who would be most impacted by this, a masonry fence, is a pretty reasonable ask. Even if I owned this house and understood that there's going to be some commercial intrusion, I don't think anybody should have to necessarily deal with a trash compactor that may be unloaded at 6 o'clock in the morning, 14 feet from their bedroom. So some of the concerns that I have to, those are the concerns that I have that I would like to see addressed. Again, those are only mine, but without having the information that is currently sitting in Mr. Twing's office, I don't see how we could even consider moving forward on this tonight.
All right. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Esbury, and I think he took away a couple questions and bullet points that I had here, but I did have an additional one. So I want to go back to the trees. I want to say all trees, I love all trees. All trees are important. All trees are good. But just like we heard at public comment tonight, silver maples are not always our best friends in neighborhoods and communities because they grow pretty quickly, and when they hit about 60, 70 years old, they start to rot, they fall down, they cause issues with our sidewalks and drains. Box elders, I'm not as familiar with. I understand that they have a lifespan of about 60 years, so I don't know the life of these currently where they're at right now. And they do cause some issues. And so I'd like to, maybe have a little bit more information about the petition from the petitioner, from our arborist, about what, the box elder situation is. I agree with Mr. Ellison. I mean, this is a piece of property that's been vacant for a long time. It's our job here to entertain and listen to proposals by petitioners. They pay their fee, they come up here, and we have to hear them and listen to what they're proposing. At the same time, I was appreciative that the petitioner did look at our community benefits resolution that lists a number of things. If you're asking for variances, we have to articulate what is the benefit to the community. Are you managing stormwater better? Are you, working on helping meet some of our SCAC goals? What are the things that you're doing? Is the building going to be LEED certified? What are the things that you're doing? You're asking for a variance or a change or something different, and I think that they're almost there. I think Mr. Gantina had a few more questions as far as Chairman, am I mistaken? Do I have the floor?
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes I forget. So, Mr. Chairman, do I have the floor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If we can stay in order, please.
I don't know if it's arrogant or if it's just asking for mutual respect. I don't remember interrupting anybody at public comment. This is an important meeting here, and I appreciate all the people that came up from Elmwood and the surrounding neighborhood that are directly impacted. They have concerns that want to be heard. And it's very disrespectful to pollute this entire process with a lot of rhetoric and interruptions when the folks that are going to be directly impacted by this proposal need to have their voices heard here at the table. So when we constantly interrupt and detract from the real issues that we're supposed to be discussing tonight, that benefits nobody. And so I find it to be a little bit disrespectful to interrupt this board, but hey, that's my opinion. I do want to get a little bit more information about the tree situation, because we do have this ordinance in place. I don't know, based on where the trees are placed, if we can really, any development, if a single family home came in, if we could get around the removal of those trees, if somebody within their rights bought the property and wanted to develop it. So I want to be a little bit more prepared on the tree situation. And of course, we put our ordinance in place to, preserve trees and to have this conversation that we're having right now about trees with the ordinance that we put in place. I had some other stuff here, but I think and do agree we need a little bit more information to process here. There's a site plan that's sitting on the desk of Mr. Twing that we got late, or we didn't get, but that came late. Certainly, without that, it's going to be challenging to make a decision or recommendation or ask further questions here. So I'll be supporting the motion, and hopefully we can get some of those questions answered on behalf of the people that are directly impacted by this development. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on this side of the table? Okay. Ms. Beakey.
I was just making an additional comment. Again, as I opened with, again, just reviewing this myself and going to the site, the area itself, I felt uncomfortable at the size of this and kind of the scale given the space. And I'd just like to reiterate, especially the setback issue with the single family behind, that would be a concern I'd like to see addressed if we are going to see different documentation next month. Because we don't have the final documentation, I'm open to pushing it to next month. And as a walk, bike, pedestrian advocate, I understand why the building is facing the street, and I appreciate that, but given that the single family home is behind, I hesitate to say both a smaller scale building, but maybe the parking in front, which is against my religion practically, might be a better option than the specific site. And I'd like to see it much closer to scale to the multifamily as it is currently zoned.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to support the motion. It makes sense to me, but I do want to make a couple comments. Of the 6 items that are on our standards, to me, there's only 2 in question. I think they really meet most of them, but whether or not there are recognizable benefits that would otherwise not be achieved without the POD, that seems to be a matter of controversy. And then number 4, and we heard from the neighbors here, this number 4, the proposed development shall not result in an unreasonable negative economic impact on surrounding properties. So this is interesting because it's not that there will be no negative impact, it's whether it'll be a unreasonable negative impact, because anytime you put people anywhere, they're going to do things like park on the street where they're not supposed to and make noise at night and things like that. Everybody does that everywhere. So the question is going to be unreasonable. And one of the things that's fascinating to me, I didn't really realize this before, but the one property, I think it's 3371, is unusually configured. And I do wonder if the petitioners and their designers considered the fact that that house was so close to the back lot line, which I did not realize myself, and whether or not there was ways to mitigate that situation by planting trees or making green space or moving the dumpster to the other side. I think that situation probably should be addressed, because that is definitely an unusual situation. So those are my comments, but I will be supporting the motion. Is there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. The motion is by Mr. Esprit to table the petition until next month. Second by Mr. Ellison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. You are tabled till next month. Okay. Let's just take a quick look here. All right. Just for the record, again, the SB 230812 was removed from the agenda, and that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. If you are a member of the public and you would like to speak on a non-agenda item, and that guy had his hand up back, way in the back, he had it up first, so he gets to go first. Please come up, state your name, introduce yourself if you wish, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. My name is Carlson Brown. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've been a Royal Oak resident living within a block of Woodward for 26 years. I love being near Woodward and Royal Oak. We've stayed here. It's easy access to shops, transportation around Metro Detroit, and great neighborhoods. So I'd like to offer this feedback on the draft master plan document that was presented last week in this Planning Commission meeting. First, I'd like it to be that we continue to respect neighborhood residents by maintaining Woodward Avenue building height restrictions as decided by this Planning Commission on August 10, 2021 at a maximum of 36 feet tall, rather than this proposed 4-story thing. Also, all along Woodward is the promotion of residential. Residential is great, but let's be careful not to force out existing general businesses by mandating flexible residential on Woodward. We love our small shops, restaurants, being in walking distance of our neighborhood. Let's encourage developers to demolish and redevelop these abandoned buildings on Woodward. Replace them with smaller buildings fit for purpose. Put the parking on either side instead of on the front, and put green space along the front. Make sure the parking's adequate, though, for the type of establishment. We live in the Motor City, right? We drive cars. It's popular, and consider also EV charging. Please maintain 4 traffic lanes on Woodward, all the way from 696 to Square Lake Road. As more companies are requiring employees to return to work, we can expect traffic to increase to the levels of 2019. And you see a lot going on in the news about pilot projects with robo-taxis. As those become reality, there'll be more cars on the road, so we should anticipate that traffic increase. But let's think about bicycles too. If we get that green space between the buildings and Woodward, we'll have room for separated bike lanes, so we don't have to mix cars with bikes. We could have a sidewalk, grass, bike lanes, grass, road, and still have 4 traffic lanes. It's called separated bike lanes. And finally, please treat all our single-family neighborhoods the same. I noticed that Woodward side, where I live, has a future land use proposal of neighborhood medium scale with multifamily building sections to sidewalks, whereas our neighbors in Vincetta, their future proposal is low scale, only single family, building setbacks. Let's treat all our neighborhoods consistently and keep today's single family strategy in place. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Parents need to go to their kids.
All right, right here, yes.
Yeah, my kids are itching to get out of here. Nicole Lawson, Royal Oak. I've lived here about 10 years. My comment is just a general comment. I know Rep. Ellison said that it's not the zoning commission, but it's a strong opposition statement against the rezoning proposed for Royal Oak. So I'm here to express that strong opposition and advise extreme scrutiny to be exercised when deciding to make changes to the zoning of an entire community. If enacted, our property rights to our single biggest investment, our neighborhoods, will be violated as they slowly or perhaps quickly become unrecognizable. Our quality of life impacted and our home values lessened. The landscapes we based our decision to move here in the first place possibly destroyed. Nearly all residents in the area who I've spoke to are completely opposed to the addition of yet more hideous multifamily housing that will cause further traffic and safety issues, more problems with schools that I didn't hear mentioned, eventually destroy more local wildlife habitat, and likely lower the property values of existing community. Single family one-family zoning designation being removed and replaced with neighborhood medium scale. Traffic and safety of pedestrians is also a big concern. Planned unit development makes traffic worse, causing local neighborhood traffic to disproportionately surge. Wildlife has been observed in my area, in my own backyard, in the area, including some threatened and endangered species. And any further terraforming with flex residential high scale up to 4 stories development will threaten them even more by destroying their only remaining habitat. I own a large lot in Royal Oak, and it's the only reason I bought the house. You know, we love our yard. We love our big silver maples that my screech owls and my big giant woodpeckers, we've seen pileated woodpeckers and all kinds of things live up there. Hawks that take care of the rats, by the way. Such transformations feels like an attack on not only the value of my largest asset, but my personal space, my family, and my way of life. It's sort of like you guys are saying in writing that we don't deserve our half-acre lot. I urge you not to adopt the proposed rezoning to neighborhood, low, medium scale, whatever that really means, and changes to the master plan. Maintain the current single-family, one-family residential zoning protections in the zoning ordinance in order to not only preserve the character of existing residential neighborhoods, but preserve the citizens' quality of life here in Royal Oak. Thank you.
I see a hand back there. Yes, you got it. You. Okay, please introduce yourself if you wish. You got 3 minutes.
I won't even take 3 minutes. My name is Elizabeth Carpenter. I live on Genesee Avenue in Royal Oak, and I know that it was taken off the agenda today for the proposed site plan for the old bank property there. But I just want to bring up a couple points before it comes back up on the ballot. Again, a long-term resident of Royal Oak. I know a great percentage of the people in this room are here for that same issue. I want you to take a look at a couple things. If you've driven by our neighborhood, it is a unique neighborhood in Royal Oak, and we all bought there for a certain reason. It is basically all ranch properties that run through. All the businesses that are across the street are ranch properties. A 4-story or anything of that sort would be so out of character for our neighborhood that it would disrupt the entire neighborhood. We are 2 blocks long on Genesee. You've already blocked us in with the Campbell property that was built, which has increased traffic flow. And there is I would like you to just take into consideration with any site plan for that bank. We are not against having something there, but we want something reasonable that fits in the landscape of our neighborhood. And that is all that we are asking. And when you're looking at your proposals, and this isn't the first time, there was other times that we have been here, but we're just asking you to go in accordance with your lot formula. Your lot formula is there for a reason. It was put there for a reason. It's not to be doubled or tripled. And we just feel very strongly about that. And we are a neighborhood. So we all talked before this meeting, and that's why there's a great percentage of people here. So I just want you to take that into consideration, and please consider our neighborhood. We are unique. We all do have our half-acre lots. A 4-story building would overtower that and take our privacy from us. There's already businesses that create a ton of garbage. And we just want that into consideration. And we bought there because it is unique. And we are bonded together as a neighborhood, which is very unique in this day and age in 2023. So I just want to make sure that you really take into consideration before any proposal of the difference. We are not downtown Royal Oak. We didn't buy there for a reason. And I've been living here since I grew up in Haint Woods. When I turned 17, I bought a house in Royal Oak. So please take that into consideration, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right here.
Good evening. I'm Trish Oliver. I've lived in Royal Oak almost 40 years and have been a board member and newsletter editor for the Royal Oak Historical Society for 20 years. It's important to learn from history and not to fall into the trap of believing historical revisionists. However, in the case of the 4704 South Rochester Road project that was on the agenda tonight and was removed just hours before tonight's meeting, history appears to be repeating itself. Last month's well-received edition of the Historical Society newsletter included the history of the nearby Mark Twain Woods, which was ultimately bulldozed to make way for another high-density multifamily development. Extreme controversy arose from that project, which the Planning Commission should never have approved because of improper notice to neighbors and extremely high density, packing in as many units as possible at the expense of green space, which resulted in a project that looks like what the 4704 South Rochester Road proposal and the new master plan would encourage. Despite this trauma to the neighborhood, you gave inadequate notice again for the Rochester project, and in addition, you're foregoing a public hearing, which doesn't give the neighborhood a fair chance. You should vote tonight to have a public hearing for the next round of consideration and mail the notices out to everyone within 300 feet. Likewise, you're also giving Royal Oakers in general inadequate notice regarding the changes to the master plan. I decided to run for mayor several months ago, and after attending the many roundtable and charrette meetings about the master plan, I feel that I made the right decision. I feel very sorry for many of my neighbors if the current version of the master plan moves forward. The many people I speak to feel that they've been excluded from the process. When they find out details of what you're planning, they're horrified. A quick summary of comments from them include: residents want to preserve single-family neighborhoods. They object to the road narrowings and road islands. They don't want tall multifamily buildings next to their single-family homes. They don't want duplexes and small apartment buildings in the middle of their single-family neighborhoods. They like large green areas in between homes with grass and landscaping. They want you to add what's good to Royal Oak instead of destroying it for the sake of change. When elected, I will continue with an inclusive process with my neighbors in order to develop a community that everyone can be happy with. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You guys tied right there. So
I'm the white.
yeah.
I feel like I go first.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, right. Good evening. My name is Sarah Jimmery Robertson. I'm a very passionate medical professional. I've been a medical provider for over 24 years. I do lots of volunteer work, worked with lots of folks in the area, and one of the most beautiful things is I am a farm girl. I grew up on a almost half-acre or half-mile square organic farm in the Thumb. My grandparents are all first-generation Americans. I had a wonderful blend of a family on the east side of Detroit, and then I grew up on this farm, so I had a lot of really cool experiences in all the places that my family is from. So one of the most appealing things about Royal Oak, and particularly Genesee Avenue, we're right in the middle of that block. We have these beautiful half acres, as you have heard from many of the neighbors. But one thing no one's really said either is that there is probably 50% of our yards during storms and any kind of torrential rain, we can't use that. There is no way you can use this unless you put a $4,000 to $10,000 drainage system in your yard. If you go down Genesee after a big rain, you will see hoses and water and all kinds of stuff all over. And growing up on a farm, I know it takes a lot of work to keep your land level and to keep everyone's property from not damaging the other. So there's a gentle balance there, right? So yes, we have these beautiful lots, and they're beautiful to look at, but they are not a half acre to use also, okay? I want that to be clear. And yes, we are fine with development. We get it, that's just how it goes, right? But again, we're not in downtown Royal Oak. We're an outer suburb. We bought purposely like that too. So if there's gonna be a multifamily unit there, just make it make sense. Keep it to the size of the area. There is I believe it's a 7 person condo or apartment building at the end. It is a single story. That's fantastic. You know what? They have a little parking on the side. It's great. even when they have extra folks there, there's a little congestion, but it's not bad. You put another 12, or I'm sorry, this is the 42 units, I believe. 44 units. That does not make sense, guys. It just doesn't. And I just really think that needs to be taken into consideration. Yes, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of tempers, there's a lot of, but you also have to understand it's impacting a lot of us. We dealt with the abundance of wildlife from the plowing down of the park. We had deer that were getting mangled and dying in our yards for about 2 years after that. That was pretty disturbing. So just take all these things into consideration, please. I'm a farm girl, but I am definitely a city girl now, but please keep our green space. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now you get to go.
Jim Robertson, Sarah's husband. So, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, Quesada? Quesada. As you spoke earlier in the first thing about the traffic, you were concerned with people crossing the parking lot and the width of the parking lot lane. When the project got built on Campbell at the east end of our street, there said there was going to be no extra traffic. I count 30 to 50 cars a day going down our side street. That's extra. Now, if we propose one on the west side, that's going to be, which 44 units, 2 cars per unit, and you only got 60 spots. That means 20 cars are parking on the side street, and they're going to be coming from the east to park on that side street. So I've already counted on our side street alone, there's 12 children that are under the age of 7. Now, it's just, I've seen it. I work for DTE. I've seen things you probably don't want to see, but I'm telling you, it's a matter of time. You got extra 100 cars a day going down a side street, and they don't do the speed limit. The only people that do the speed limit are the people who live there. People are bypassing the 14 mile in Campbell, zipping down a side street to get on Campbell to go south because they don't want to wait at the light. I want you to take into consideration that these are our homes. We bought them because of what's there. We don't think it should be changed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right here in the front here.
Hello, my name is Brian Herman, and my wife and I have only lived in Royal Oak since 1987, so we're newbies. I'd like to, although it may be not appropriate to say this, I'd like to rebut something that Mr. Ellison said, and then Mr. Fournier also. Mr. Ellison, you said that the individual that lived behind the proposed building on Greenfield knew that they were on a commercial property when they bought potentially getting on behind a commercial property when they bought that property. And I'm pretty sure that the people that own that property now that we're talking about knew that it abutted to a residential neighborhood when they purchased it, because they haven't been there, they haven't owned that property for 80 years.
Are you talking about the property on Camp?
The property that the people were here talking about.
Yeah.
They haven't owned that property for 80 years, so they knew that it was a residential neighborhood, abutting to a residential neighborhood when they purchased it.
Yeah.
So my comment is just, my rebuttal is the same as your discussion, that the people that purchased that property knew it abutted to possibly a commercial property.
Yeah, all I was simply trying to get across is you got to be aware of who your neighbors are.
I'm sorry?
You just got to be aware of who your neighbors are.
Well, so do they. I mean, so do the
Yeah,
people that purchased that property. They had to know that they were abutting up to a residential neighborhood. And the other thing that I find a little bit disturbing was that Mayor Fournier, is that correct?
That's right.
That you talk about the trees and the amount of foliage that's going to be placed on that project, And we don't seem to be very concerned that there's not enough parking spaces or area for that project. I mean, I can understand that we have to be concerned about trees and green spaces, but it's not as concerning to me as the amount of area that they're trying to build a 12-unit apartment building on. It's, in my opinion, it's too small. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Gary, if I just regarding the tree replacement ordinance that we're trying to follow here, we know we're not going to get. There's a formula that's followed. If you take down X amount of trees, then you've got to replace X amount of trees times 6 or 7. And we know that it's not going to be on that property. Well, that does, but it goes into the tree replacement fund of the city, and we put those trees in parks, we put those trees in front of your house. The trees are paid for by the developers, even though we're not getting it on their property. The ordinance requires them to supply money to offset the cost of adding trees back into the community. So
relieve them of that
responsibility. Because up here we're dealing all the time with dollars and cents. If someone's going to build a project, it's got to make economic sense. So they're looking for relief, and that's their right. That's why we're here. They can come in and ask for anything. It doesn't mean we're going to give it to them.
Okay, so we had the woman back there with the paper.
So you can see me.
Please introduce yourself if you wish. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name's Carolyn Martz. I live on the north side of the city. I'm here to express my concerns regarding the proposed 3.5-story multifamily building with 44 units. 2 adults per unit would mean 88 people, presumably 88 more vehicles on the roads. This parcel is only 1.25 acres. 88 people and 88 vehicles would be overcrowding of this land. A 3.5-story high building will impede my enjoyment of my backyard by blocking sunsets from being viewed. At the State of the City this morning, which I enjoyed, the mayor said his administration is striving to keep Royal Oak livable and enjoyable. Blocking my sunsets won't be enjoyable for me and my family. I hate when I get nervous. 80 more people using electricity and water, sewage, utilities make things more unlivable as well. On page number 4, on page 5, number 4 of the memo, it says the planning division recommends no more than 32 dwellings on this parcel and no more than 2.5 stories. I recommend 2 stories with 20 units would be ideal. Each time I leave my driveway, I have to wait for at least 1 to 3 vehicles running the red light at 14 in Rochester. Bringing in 80 or so more vehicles to this small intersection could create an even more harrowing, or somebody said unreasonable, situation for me leaving my driveway. And I'm curious, I heard that notification has gone from 300 feet to 100 feet. I hope this isn't true. Okay. And lastly, 16 requests for variance should tell each and every one of you guys that this is an overreach and overcrowding for the space. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I did see the hand way back in the back there.
Wait. Gentlemen.
Good evening again. I come before you in hopes of spurring a rethinking of your master plan's communication plan, as it does not appear to be proactive. I have a background having worked on the prior master plan, or the current master plan, as a member of the steering committee, just so you know my gravitas in the area. The start of the process was good. Postcards were mailed in January to Royal Oak households for the master plan roundtable discussions the following month. Since then, there hasn't been a direct mail to all Royal Oak households, and there was no mention of the master plan in this summer's Insight magazine. The last Facebook post on the city site was July 13th.
Good job, except only 16,000 people follow the Royal Oak page. With a population of 57,000 people, we can assume that at least 50% of Royal Oak's households are not friends with the city. 16,000 also includes non-residents, your relatives, and professionals with a vested interest in doing business here. Additionally, it's not unusual, frankly, for individuals to ignore their Facebook accounts these days. Email communication also occurred on July 13th, but again, just to the subset of individuals who've signed up for city email. The Plan Royal Oak website had a promising start, but is no longer current. Under the Participation tab, a summer drop-in workshops was highlighted. However, we are 2 weeks from September, and they've not materialized. It appears it's been 3 months since the mapping ideas and comments section was either updated or even used. Finally, is there any media coverage? Nothing in the Tribune, the Review, much less the Free Press or the News. There haven't been any press releases. Has anyone called a reporter? Has anyone asked to be interviewed? The master plan process that we have currently in place had over 40 public meetings in different large city venues. There was a lot of media coverage. It was raucous, but it was sound. And we know people knew that there was a master plan going on. Reaching our population is harder these days. However, relying on a passive website and email and Facebooks to a subset of our population is not good enough. Where are the posted signs that we were promised? Multiple ways of seeking input are needed to guarantee a better result. According to Plan Royal Oak, we are now currently at stage 4 of a 5-stage process. We are flying under the radar rather than reaching out to our constituents. Please rethink and retool to include your citizenry rather than just your consultants. Thank you very much. Also, I just want, as a point, we have folks here today who thought they were coming to a public hearing that's now been postponed. Will their comments have the same bearing that they're sharing this evening as if they'd come to the public hearing? I think it would be helpful if you did address that so they understood that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I saw a hand back there. The woman, yes.
Get the glasses.
All right, please introduce yourself if you wish, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Patty Moore, and I've got just 2 issues that I wanted to talk about. The first is any kind of a road diet. I would implore you to reconsider anything that you might be wanting to do with that. I've got tons of friends in Berkeley and Ferndale, and they hate it. No one likes that. It helps like just a handful of people. And the other thing that was brought up was infrastructure. We just had another water main break over on Webster. All this multifamily housing, what's that going to do to the infrastructure? That's all.
All right, right down the aisle there.
Sue Fabian. First, I want to point out that there's a double standard of justice sitting on this commission. One of you assaulted a fellow Royal Oaker and was let off scot-free. Had I done the same thing, I would have been prosecuted. That speaks to the integrity of this planning commission, that you would allow such a person on this panel. If you support the master plan, which is against the great wishes of the people as expressed in the charrettes, and by the way, those of us that were opposed to it, which was the great majority, we were identified as a limited geographic in your master plan direction. There's a public survey out right now about communication in Royal Oak. All of those comments, all of them, from the people that opposed the master plan, were left out of the master plan direction. You call that communication? What you're doing in Royal Oak is a global phenomenon. It's not happening just in Royal Oak. It's not happening just in Oakland County. It's not happening just in Michigan or the United States. It's happening all across the globe. It's called road diets and multifamily developments. Now, you are under either threat from superior powers, or you're getting money, or you're cowards. I don't like talking like this. I am not a negative person. I commend those of you that were in opposition to this plan. But you are here to serve the people, and that's demanded in the city budget, where the people are up on top. You have made a mockery of that. Look at all these people that have come here tonight. Are you listening? I could be up here in tears for all the travesties that have been put upon us.
We the people.
And you are the ones doing it. And Mr. Mayor, you're a big part of that. I didn't know what I was going to say coming up here. I didn't plan to be angry. But when I see the injustice visited upon these people, it makes me sick. I have prayed for each and every one of you for the last year, and I will continue to pray, because hard hearts are a call to love. I continue to pray for you every night.
Thank you. Yay, Sue, right here.
Before I start my 3 minutes, my name is Mike Seville. I've been a resident of Royal Oak since 1980. I lived at the south end. I wanted to move north, but my wife said she ain't driving that far to work, so I settled at the north end. I pay a fair amount of money in taxes, okay? So I'm going to submit Jason and Jennifer Fox, 1112 Genesee. They couldn't make it tonight. I'd like to enter their statement into a public record. Can I approach? Thank you.
So just to be clear, so that's a part of the public, they just couldn't be here, so you're just handing their written statement, just for the record.
Yeah, I couldn't read the statement.
Okay, go ahead.
Congratulations on your appointment from internal attorney yesterday. Congratulations. I'm not going to read a whole lot of my statement. I just want to say it's outrageous that you have adjourned because there hasn't been enough notice in the first place about SP 230812, which is the bank at Rochester Road in Genesee. You didn't give us any notice, and again, several of the panel talked about disrespecting the panel and disrespecting the public, but yet, when we want to put our input in, we're blown aside. Now, who does that 2 hours before a meeting and cancels an agenda? We were not given any notice in the first place. You need to vote tonight to have a public hearing for the next round of consideration and mail the notice to everybody within 300 feet. We all live in the city of Royal Oak. We all know that what affects the 300 feet affects the community. I live on a half-acre lot. You guys have got to start paying attention to the residents. We need to have surveys. You need to start paying attention to me. I would like to have my statement entered in as part of the public record because I deviated it from it, but that's because other stuff happened tonight.
That's okay with me if you hand it.
Approach. Yeah, thank you very much.
Chairman Casado?
Yes.
I do empathize with some of the frustration about the last minute, removal of the agenda item. Is there a way that maybe we get a statement that talks about what things are noticed and when they're noticed, and a little bit about how the petitioner may have a right to remove things from the agenda?
Well, I'm going to say we got a lot of people here that still want to talk, so I would say can we save that till the end when?
Well, I mean, if they want to talk about that and express their frustration, maybe if I feel like I've seen a pattern here, I'm just suggesting maybe if we could quickly address it, then folks can direct their comments with a little bit of understanding how that happened. That's all.
Okay. Would you be the one, or you were asking?
I'll be happy to address it.
Guys, coming in on my 3 minutes?
Yes. Your 3 minutes is
Your
up.
3 minutes are up.
Yes.
I didn't hear the bell. Okay. All right, thank you.
I'd be happy to address it. The property on Rochester Road is zoned for mixed use too, which allows a multifamily development by right, meaning it's a permitted use. There is no requirement in the zoning ordinance, state statute, that requires any notice under a permitted use by right in the zoning ordinance. The notices that are sent out are related to special land uses, rezoning requests, and so on. So in regards to the Rochester Road property, there was no notice provided and no notice is required. Secondly, I pulled it off the agenda tonight because we had conflicting ownership on who owned the property and whether there was a right under ownership of who submitted it. So I withdrew it at last minute based on a complaint that the petitioner didn't have ownership of the property and had no property interest. I don't know how to make it much more clear, but there is no notice required. None was provided.
So does the guy own it or not?
That's what we don't know. And it would be a complete waste of this body's time to have, it'd be like me going and filing a petition here on your property and saying, I'd like to do all these things, and you're like, hey, so we couldn't get clarity on the ownership.
It just is
okay. Well, yeah, it's not. Let's not.
A clarification.
Finally,
the limit.
Finally, if I can finish.
Hold on.
The petition that was on the agenda this evening was noticed that it was being pulled based on that issue. The deviations, or if you read the staff report, the variances that might be needed for that would have had to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and under those you would have gotten notice within 300 feet. You will still get those if they apply to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But there is no required notice for this body and their site plan.
Okay. And
Let me just add in here that the 300 feet is dictated by state law. That's not an arbitrary number that we put. We can't make it 500, we can't make it 200, we can't make it 1,000. State law has got to apply to all these petitioners. We've got to follow the law, they've got to follow the law. The law says we give notice at 300 foot. And that's what we do.
Okay. We're ready to go back to public notice. All right, there's a woman in the flower dress there. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know who had their hand up first. So I just picked the dress.
Good evening. My name is Mary Bogish. I live at 1418 Ottawa in Royal Oak, of course. All right. As a Royal Oak resident, most of my 63 years of age and a taxpayer for decades, I don't support the changes being proposed in the new master plan. I object to the neighborhood medium scale, which is characterized by small to medium single-family lots with detached buildings relatively near to the sidewalk, which allow duplex and small-family buildings in what is now our residential single-family zoning. I object to flex residential high scale up to 4 stories, which is proposed along major corridors through the city, including Woodward and the Mile Roads and more. And more lane reduction by city-wide. Anyway, currently our single-family residential zoning provides greenery, peaceful spacing, and creates a sense of place with neighborhood unity and aesthetic components which complement each other and enhance our property values. I don't support the cramming of multiple various units or detached buildings in what is now single-family residential, which would take away the reason so many residents chose to live in Royal Oak. I also don't support the road diet concept. It results in idling cars, trying to get to the same place, resulting or creating more carbon emissions and air pollution, as well as taking away clear access on typical routes used by emergency vehicles. The master plan is proposed will forever change Royal Oak's aesthetics, resulting in our city having a conglomeration of cement and building heights that block current residents' views of the skyline, including sunrises and sunsets, which I particularly love, and more air pollution with idling cars. The lead on the hired consulting firm made a recommendation to don't change your single-family residential neighborhood, so I agree with that statement. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you. Right over here, the gentleman.
Good evening, neighbors. My name is Wade Sutton, and I'm a homeowner here in Royal Oak. And prior to the past year, I wasn't that involved with city government and that aware. But my experience compelled me to get involved. At the end of my street, there was a a development that was proposed that required several variances, and we came to voice our concerns and were pretty dismissed. I went to the charrettes. The consultants were quite dismissive. Rochester Road, with the requests for not doing the road diets, were also felt dismissed, and so that compelled me to get involved. And what made me think about this, because of my career in organizational change management, is trying to understand who benefits, why should I be excited, what are those obstacles that people need to deal with. And it seems there's a pattern that there's a small group of people that are getting these variances to the detriment of the larger majority. And that's a pattern that degrades the trust. And when there's a trust deficit, then we have a trust tax, which means we need more meetings, we need more laws, costs go up, speed goes down. And I see that coming in with the master plan. And the master plan, as I reviewed it, opens up significant ambiguity. And with that medium density housing, with low trust and human nature, and this is old as time, people will work in their own self-interest, and which is why we created laws, which is why we have ordinances. And then when those get ignored, chaos ensues. So my request is that as we evaluate the master plan, that those considerations for the community are considered, that the ambiguity is eliminated, includes more clear definitions and language, so that we can continue to grow Royal Oak, so that we can consult with people that are much smarter, that represent more people, so that we can continue to prosper, because this community is a big part of my family and my connection to the community. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I saw the woman way in the back with the glass on her head.
Hi, Janice Wagman. So I'm going to change a little bit from what they're talking about, but still, the master plan, we've spent $300,000, we've hired a consultant for $300,000. And when they were originally hired, and we had the very first meeting, I talked to one of their representatives, and I said, are you going to put signs up like you did in Birmingham, notifying people throughout the community that we're doing a master plan, here's where you can go to get information, and that the Planning Commission is going to be holding meetings during certain months. That's what they did in Birmingham. I was told yes, and I've yet to see them. We've got to stop relying on old school type tactics and new school. I'm not going to say what year I came to Royal Oak, but there's a lot of people who are not on Facebook, a lot of seniors. They have no clue that this is going on. And it just behooves us to have an educated citizenship residents that can give enough input on this. Same thing goes for, so I'm asking you to do that. If it's not in their contract to do that, the city should be doing it. It's a huge change for the city, what's being proposed. Also, with regards to the Rochester Road issue, which Mr. Twing was talking about, and the fact that there was no public hearing notice sent out, I would want to deviate from that also from a communication standpoint. I understand the state requires 300 feet and that you put a notice in the newspaper, but I will guarantee you when there's public hearings at least that people aren't going to the want ads looking for notices in the want ad section of the Oakland Press or wherever you happen to put it. So create generic signs. So when people come in and they want a zoning change, they want to be on an agenda for the city or for the city commission or zoning or planning, it's just a generic sign saying this property is under consideration, put a QR code on it that goes to the city's website, the agenda center or whatever, so that there's an alert, because otherwise people don't know about it. I'm sure 99% of the people here were notified by mouth. They didn't look at the agenda to find this information on Rochester Road. They might have seen my posts on Nextdoor and Facebook, but I shouldn't have to do that. I mean, it should. If you put a sign out there, people are going to know. So I just want to see you reaching out more to the community in order to educate them and go one step further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right here in front.
My name is Mary Sobek, and I'm a resident of Royal Oak. And I was reading through your master plan, and when talking about the Woodward area, and it said most of the commercial areas are recommended for conversion to residential, with commercial uses being concentrated at major road intersections. And I just wondered, how are you guys going to accomplish this? Because you're talking from Webster to Woodward, to 13 Mile. What are you going to just all of a sudden just get rid of all the businesses? I'm curious how you guys are planning on doing that. Does anybody have anything to say?
It's a master plan.
Well, I don't understand how you can just all of a sudden just get rid of a whole slew of businesses and put houses up. I'm curious, is it like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? I'm trying to understand how you're going to do this master plan direction.
Let me try this. If you're a building on Woodward Avenue conducting a business,
yes,
your grandfather did.
Okay.
Until somebody comes in and wants to do something, we're not going to kick you out.
Well, that's what I wanted to.
Yeah, it's changing the zoning so there's more options. If it's zoned strictly commercial business right now, that's all can go in there.
Oh.
But if we change the master plan to say commercial business and/or residential, it improves the options. So if someone wants to come with a residential plan, we can consider it.
Right.
If we don't do that, we can't consider it. So it's just, we're trying to get more options to get more stuff into the city. But no, they're not going to kick somebody out.
Okay, well, I was just trying to understand. I also have a question. It would be nice if they did something with the property where Pasquale's was. That thing's been sitting empty, and it's an eyesore for a long time.
We would love nothing better, but that's all privately owned. The city doesn't own any of that. And we can't go in and force them to do something. They own the property. It's their investment. They have property rights. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, and we're going to wait for them to come to us and submit their plan.
Yeah.
But there's nothing we can do. There's no ordinance. It's what they're doing is just stalling and not breaking any laws.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. So hand back in the back there, glasses, black shirt. Sweater, black sweater.
Thank you. My name's Joanne O'Malley, and I live at 2345 Hawkins. So I have received this from my neighbor, unexpectedly, didn't know this was going on, that directly impacts me. So likewise, I do agree there needs to be better communication to the neighborhood. And the 300-foot rule, while that's a state rule, and I respect the state rule, that doesn't mean we can't be courteous to the neighbors at a larger scope. And so my concerns, and this, I don't even know if this plan is a figment of somebody's imagination or potential of what could happen, but I think my comments just reiterate a lot of what was stated here, is this particular plan shows an opening of Carmen, which is now a dead-end street up to the Woodward Alley, where I'm going to have potentially this 4-story condo building. My backyard is right on the alley. Unfortunately, that's what I could afford and bought 30 years ago. I work at Beaumont for 30 years. I contribute to the community, but I do want to feel like my community and city is working on my behalf. I don't want a 4-story condo with all the balconies, all the way down 3 stories and however wide, looking at me in my backyard. I don't want all the lighting that comes from that into my backyard. I don't want Carmen opened up for street traffic into my neighborhood. I'm the second house south of Carmen. There is a lot of sewage and water from that building that will flow into the low point at Carmen and Hawkins, giving me even more flooding, and I've already had so many basement floods, Allstate is sick of me calling them. I'm really disheartened that I understand the city needs to grow. I want the city to grow. I know what you want to have your businesses on the Woodward streets, but not to the detriment of my personal property and my personal privacy. There will be no privacy with that building. It will decrease my property value. It will increase the amount of time it takes me to sell that property when I want to move. And while those may be not large risks or large things for someone to be considerate about. That's my retirement and my equity that you're playing with. We have had many young families move into Hawkins. People didn't used to come down that road. I mean, there were hotels on Woodward, so it's better now than it was. But people didn't want to come down there for Halloween. We have young families moving in. It is grown into the community of the Northwood area, and I don't want to see that retracted by that large building in my backyard. So I think I'm just here to support what many people have stated. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address the 300 foot. We've got to follow state law, because if we change it for one petitioner, the other petitioners, they're going to say you're cheating me. Everybody else has to do 300, but you're going to make me do 500. So we can't do that. It's got to be consistent. If you want it better than 300, contact your state legislature.
That's fine. I just feel that it was very sad that I live in a city where a neighbor gave me the...
And you understand that all those pictures on that are simply what ifs it's no hard plan. There's
what ifs are still every time
so
I have to come here and fight for my rights.
Yeah, no, you're right. So if that's a scenario that says what if, you don't want it, as we just heard you say it. So
we gotta keep going. All right, I think you had your hand up right here in the front, no?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Thank you very much. Guys, thank you very much for your time tonight. My name is Pete Ferenzi, Glenview, better part of a decade now here in Royal Oak. Love the city. I remember what it used to be when I was a teenager. It was a lot of fun. Now I don't know what's going on. I really don't. But I took a look and I saw the budget, and I saw the Royal Oak budget, and I saw the in Oakland County as well, just to basically back up everything that I've seen. Based upon my due diligence, you guys, we got a big problem. We got a real big problem. Out of the surrounding cities, between Southfield, Farmington Hills, St. Clair Shores, Novi, Troy, Rochester Hills, they're below 100 million. Some are about 60, 50, give or take, around there. Royal Oak right now, I don't even know how to say it. 184 million. And you guys got 100 million in the road millage, which you guys are basically going to potentially put through as part of the master plan. You guys are going to take that 100 million and put it towards the master plan. So we're going to basically be left shouldering a tremendous amount of debt, the likes of which the city's never seen before. Gary, ever. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's not even just these folks. You're talking about kids. While they're playing with TikTok and looking at Instagram and Facebook, what are we left with? The kids are going to be left with a tremendous amount of debt. We can use Pontiac as a good go-to. Pontiac's a great city to look at as far as something that basically imploded. They're just now asking for emergency funding. $300 million is what we're potentially going to be looking at. Allison, I know you were strapped with a real tough job, man. A real tough job getting the city back on point again. You know, that doesn't go overlooked, but still at the same time, with what we're faced with the downtown area of Royal Oak getting darker and darker and darker, I don't see the vibrance that it used to have. It's not there. And I'm not pointing a finger at you, Mr. Ellison. I really am not. But it's just, the thing is that when you look at the parking meters and businesses shutting down, you've got 30 businesses shut down over the course of how many years? Just a handful of years? I mean, I got cited twice, and there was plenty of money in the meter. There was plenty of time on that clock, but yet I still got a freaking ticket in the mail. Thanks. That was, I mean, a lot of these folks can, you know, that could relate with a lot of folks. But, you know, here's the thing. I have a Bachelor of Science in Business. I'm a federal. Mike, you're going to have to shoulder quite a bit, man. Heart goes out to you because a lot of people are ticked off. But I'll tell you right now, I've got a Bachelor of Science in Business. I'm a federal loan officer in real estate, combined 20 years plus, and a little bit of understanding of fund management. Right now, this management of this city fund is not right. It's wrong across the board, and I thank you for your time, gentlemen.
All right, thank you. All right, right there in the aisle. Yes.
Pretty good.
Rick Kurlowski back again. Making a couple of comments from the last meeting where there were comments from the Planning Commission on the master plan, and one of them was, "Gee, I'm sure glad there's not a lot of changes to it." There is a fundamental, massive change to it. You are getting rid of single-family zoning. You're getting rid of the definition of it and the protections of it. You can call it low, medium, high. You can call it Fruit Loops. I don't care. You're getting rid of single-family zoning and the protections thereof. You are allowing, even in low category, multifamily units in single-family neighborhoods. Almost at whim. That is a major, major change. And it's not, and frankly, I would like to have a survey when you have these out, instead of having little worded questions, just have a basic question. Hey, folks, do you think we should get rid of single-family zoning in Royal Oak? Yes or no? Have a survey like that. Put it out straight. I don't want to hear this, well, we had 5 questions, this is what we came to the conclusion of. Just ask the freaking question. Do you still want single-family zoning or not? Now, yes, there are some places in the city we can probably look at rezoning because, frankly, I don't think anybody wants to build a house on a major mile road and raise a family there anymore. Okay, we can look at that. The other problem was there was a comment, well, we're going to have this master plan for the next 30 years. Well, folks, the master plan you're going to have right now is going to have this city go from 30% rentals to 60, because that's what you're putting in here. You're putting in multifamily, you're putting in duplexes, and if there's a study out there and you guys got data that says that people actually buy duplexes, actually buy multifamily housing, I'd like to see it, because I don't see it. They do place some condos on Main Street, great. A few other places. Single family, no. Single family zoning should be single family zoning, not confab of whatever we can densify to the maximum degree. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Over here, by the wall there, by the window right there.
Oh, God, I can't follow her.
Thank you. Nancy Poprovsky, Batavia. The new master plan is worrisome. Before the city moves forward on being #1 with more development and entertainment, I wish it would work in a bigger way on serious environmental and sustainability issues, including our climate crisis. Future generations will suffer immensely by our mistakes, short-sightedness, and greed, and want everything now. It's a fact that less dense neighborhoods with lots of mature trees have better air quality overall than dense, congested, overly cemented cities with too many high-rises. We must leave more vast space untouched by overdevelopment and cement. Developers will try to sell you rooftop gardens, rain gardens, and scrawny saplings. The key word is sell, not a solution. In 2018, 12.5 acres of forest were bulldozed at 14 and Stevenson. Excuses were made that the city couldn't purchase the forest. This is unsettling. The city has spent over $300,000 on consultants for the master plans and tens of thousands for other studies through the years. Article after article have been written on how the city has planted thousands of trees. That's fine. But when telling the media the positive things about tree planting, it must be transparent that thousands of mature trees, some being forest, were bulldozed down. Here are scientific facts from the Sierra Club 2022 and an ongoing study from U of M Environmental Studies. The smaller a protected area is, the more likely it is that the species, human, animal, forest, wetlands, etc., will disappear in that small area due to climate crisis, drought, fires, flooding, major storms. Environmental experts have been collaborating to protect 30% of global lands and water by 2030. This vast space has a much greater chance of survival than small pockets of green space. This can help with extinction and safeguard biodiversity. Royal Oak pocket parks are not to be necessarily criticized, but unfortunately in reality it's only many acres of trees without cement that are needed to change carbon emission and ongoing climate crisis. We can't wait 20 years for these tiny Tree USA saplings to make a change. Save mature trees now. Acres of older trees in the upper forest canopy are stronger and able to withstand droughts and storms due to stable
If you could wrap it up,
roots.
please. Thanks.
Single saplings standing alone are very vulnerable to climate crisis. That's our new reality now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right there. Sorry to point.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I live on Sylvan Drive. Homeowner since 1988. We've been to the zoning board meeting the last 2 months, talking about getting rid of the single-family homes, saying medium or whatever. We're fighting having someone turn one of our homes on Sylvan into a duplex. They are 1,050 square foot ranch, single floor basement. And it's a shame if that goes through, because it's just going to be a blockbuster, a city buster. It'll be like the city I grew up in that nobody wants to live in now. So I don't know how this master plan, if all of you think it's a good idea, you should be ashamed.
All right, thank you. Right here in the front.
Hey, thank you, Kathy Grant, Elmhurst. Listening to everybody talk, I just want to show a visual. After I went to the master plan in my quadrant, I don't know why I saved this postcard, but my water bill is bigger than this. My tax bill is bigger than this. Nobody got this that I talked to. Nobody. They didn't know anything about it. They didn't show up. I did. Went to all the quadrant meetings, went to all the charrettes, and I came away with a lot of information I was not happy with. And that's why I'm running for city commission. As a visiting nurse, driving around this city, and I've lived here since 1987, raised 4 kids. My husband grew up here, went to high school here. I married him, we raised our kids here. I'm a visiting nurse. I've been driving around this city since 1994 as a visiting nurse. I've never had so much trouble meeting my patients' needs and getting to their home in a timely manner as this year. Now, I call EMS on a bad patient that's going south. You guys are putting in road islands, limiting lanes. What's a big type bus, ER, fire truck supposed to get down those streets and those main tributaries to downtown? And you're gonna take care of all the mile roads. You're gonna do something with those. You're gonna do something with Crooks, Coolidge, Maine, Coolidge, I said Coolidge, Rochester. And now I hear, according to page 29 of that master plan I printed out, that you want to do something with Woodward as well? Okay, so how are people on the east side of Woodward supposed to get across Woodward in a timely fashion when seconds matter? How about an EMS vehicle? How about a fire truck? How about me trying to transport somebody there? You're going to take a lane off Woodward each way between 11 and 14 Mile Road. And I'm supposed to get west to the hospital. Can anybody explain to me how that's going to work? For anybody. Hope you guys never have to call EMS. I hope you never have to call a fire truck. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I believe that the woman at the back there in the white shirt had her hand up.
Good evening. Dora Beltrasitis, longtime resident, 320 South Pleasant. I'm here to ask the question, who benefits? Who benefits from the proposed rezoning from single-family residential areas to medium-scale neighborhood and flexible scale in the Royal Oak Master Plan? Is it the residents that benefit that have lived in Royal Oak for months to 80 years, who worked hard to put down payments on beautiful homes with character and beautiful neighborhoods with mature trees near a walkable downtown? No, it's not. Is it the Royal Oak residents that benefit, who scrimped, saved, worked multiple jobs, took on renters, and sacrificed vacations to make their mortgage payments? No, it's not. Or is it the residents that benefit, that bought older homes, many over 100 years old, and took on many DIY jobs to cut costs, pay contractors thousands of dollars to upgrade their electrical and plumbing, to replace their windows or roofs, etc.? No, it is not. Is it the residents in Royal Oak neighborhoods that benefit, that purchase homes that didn't have usable garages, had shared driveways or no driveways at all, causing parking issues for family members and guests? No, it's not. Is it the single-family residents that benefit of Royal Oak that saw approval of 452 multifamily building permits in 2018 to just 96 single-family permits that were approved? No, it's not. It seems that proposed rezoning leans heavily towards multifamily versus single-family development, is more focused on benefiting transient residents and high-density development versus, what the City Commission is looking for versus what the homeowners and residents want. I'm not against progress. Progress and preservation do not have to be mutually exclusive. We can do better. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The checkered shirt there.
I have a handout. I just want to pass it around. Hi, Mike Thompson, Commission, Chairman Casada. Mike Thompson, 1210 Irving. We've got a homeowners association, Lawson Park Homeowners Association for 25 years. Master plan process is ongoing. We've met with a lot of residents. We met with other homeowners associations, Woodward Side, Uptown, neighborhood associations, city officials, planning, consultants. We did surveys, roundtables, charrettes, and we reviewed the early master plan draft that was issued. So what did I just pass out? What I and our group and our residents and our homeowner association is putting out is, instead of saying we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this, it's what we want. It's goals and directions. So we want to plant the seed or pass this out. We really are drawn to the 2012 current master plan. It represents 65% of the land use, which is single-family residential. It protects single-family. It keeps out higher scale. It preserves, enhance the character of single-family, maintain privacy, unobstructed sunlight, maintain buffers, encourage. A new thing is we want to encourage some neighborhood historic designations as well, because we're coming up, my house is over 100 or almost 100 years old, so in some other cities, they're protecting their historic neighborhoods, so that's protection in the physical structures as well as the density of the neighborhoods and the uses and the et cetera. So we're for housing and growth, but we want it in the current multifamily zones that are in the city. We want multi-generational communities for young people, for seniors. We want to keep taxes down. Low taxes is a great way to have attainable housing, to cut some of the spending and maybe some of the millages that are very aggressive. We want to maintain capacity of major thoroughfares. We don't see some of the road diets as things that are beneficial maybe for a handful, but they hurt a majority of people. We're for noise ordinances with the hot rods and motorcycles, especially along Woodward Avenue, to work with the state on that. We're for sustainability, managed stormwater. We're for enhancing transportation and safety to schools, embrace green strategies, and not applied green, not fake panels like we saw earlier tonight. So let's work together, and thank you.
All right, thank you. There's another checkered shirt there. Checkered shirt day. It's already been up once.
Good evening, Tom Halleck again. You're having a master plan process that so far is proposing completely changing all the neighborhoods. The changing of the term from single family to low to medium density has been mentioned. That's not just a description, that's a legal term. And being single family means it has to be single family. Low and medium density means that they can shove duplexes, triplexes, accessory dwelling units and two-story apartments in any place they feel like. And that is virtually all of the neighborhoods in Royal Oak so far as described. They are also proposing some rather massive changes for those of you who happen to live between 11 Mile and 4th Street, east of downtown all the way to Campbell. They want to change your entire neighborhood to 3-story apartments. But that's okay. They want to line 11 Mile with 4-story apartments. If you live on 12 Mile, they want to change all of that to 3-story apartments, which is mostly single family now. And there's nothing saying how far deep in their neighborhood they're going to go to do that. They also, if you live between Crooks, Main, and 12 Mile, they want to change your neighborhood to 3-story apartments plus. And here's the real kicker. None of this is on the city website. I brought this up last month. The city is hiding what you are doing. It is not on the city website. You keep trying to do everything electronically instead of actually like communicating with people. There's not a thing on the website. If you go there, there's no link to planroyaloak.com. There's no maps. There's no proposals. There's no language. There's no input. Nothing. That's an embarrassment. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. This government is hiding what you are doing. You are trying to fundamentally change our entire town, and you don't have the decency to tell people what's going on and how to find out about it? Shame on you.
All right, thank you. Right here. Right on the aisle.
Hi, I'm Mick McGuire. I live at 4456 Arlington. This master plan, I would think would be fine except for one thing. I have yet to meet one person who said, I have no problem with someone tearing a house down next to me and putting up a duplex. Not one person have I met. I don't know anybody on this council I think would like that, would enjoy seeing a home torn down next to them and seeing an apartment unit put up next to them. Now show me one, just one person. I can't see why we're doing this or even talking about this when I've not met one person who thought this was a good idea. Not one. Except for builders, which would be glad to do this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Orange shirt.
That's why we're not talking about it, because no one's going to do it.
I got to give you kudos on the chairs. They're much more comfortable. And I am now, 3 hours older than I was the last time we talked. Having been here since 1973, I've seen a lot of changes over time. Number one, and most important to us as a child-rearing family, the elementary school kids could walk to and from school. I was in such a great position that I could really even watch them go to the door if I stood outside on the sidewalk. Downtown stores were family-friendly. Who doesn't remember Fields and Winkelman's and was it Grant or came or Kresge? Was Kresge? Okay. Saunders, ooh, that was a good one. Parking was free or simple, easy to read meters, and they only took cash, coins. Roads had enough lanes to make travel quick and easy. It wasn't hard to get across the city. So why these changes? Well, it has to do with who you want to live here and what kind of a society and what kind of neighborhood you want. And you are making it look very attractive for the fluid residents? Who said that we had to have all these apartments all over the place with increasing high density and high rises? And as you're increasing density, you're taking away lanes of traffic. And it's just so like illogical. There must be something else behind what's going on. And, you know, listening to everybody talk tonight is very concerning. We're taking away lanes of our roads, and it's bad enough right now. I remember that I was hearing they had those some kind of cords across the lanes of roads, so if you had less than 1,000 cars or something, they could consider taking away lanes of traffic. But at the same time they were putting those out, they had closed another road, and they were avoiding that. So it wasn't an accurate thing. You know, we're told to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so many people addressed their concerns about it. We really need to be doing that, is to love our neighbors as ourselves. Who's our neighbor? Everybody's our neighbor. Not just people who are in politics or other jobs. And Jim, you talked about intrusion, not making, you know, so much intrusion into our neighborhoods. So let's love each other and put the other person in our place and do what we would want to have done.
All right. Right there, you.
Thank you. Bill Harrison, 82-year resident of Royal Oak and a 44-year resident of Woodward Side, 1 block east of Woodward Avenue. So I want to address the master plan effect on the Woodward Side subdivision. The change to a form-based code will eliminate single-family zoning that will allow duplex and multi-family housing within what is now single-family areas. DPZ, the consultant, is also pushing for auxiliary dwelling units, which will increase density and increase parking. The idea of narrowing Woodward by 1 lane and adding a slip lane service drive is ridiculous. They're also talking about a bike path in the median that will be as dangerous as when streetcars ran in the median. I'm probably one of the old enough to, the only one old enough to remember the streetcars and ride on them. Anyway, the proposed road millage renewal will provide $100 million for road diets and major roads in addition to the Woodward Road Diet program. Ferndale contributed $1.2 million to their Woodward narrowing. In Royal Oak, going from 696 to, I guess, Maple Road is going to be tremendously more expensive on a Royal Oak contribution basis. Replacing general business zoning on Woodward with flex residential high scale that will allow 4-story apartments, it again will be problematic in terms of parking and congestion in our subdivision. And the drawing in DPZ's summary report shows 2-story buildings, which is disingenuous when they're talking about 4-story. The trend toward micro apartments will ultimately emulate extended stay motel rooms. We had 11 motels on Woodward that were a source of drugs, prostitution, and other criminal activity. We were finally able to get rid of 7 motels over a period of almost 20 years. Matt, the DPZ consultant, he had several comments during the last meeting, which included form-based, which are somewhat disingenuous. Form-based coding focuses on the form of the building rather than the use. Rather than the use is the operative phrase here. If it looks like a house, it is a house.
All right, thank you. We can wrap it up. Okay, right there also on the aisle.
Hi, I'm Gail McGuire, and I live at 4456 Arlington Drive in Royal Oak. And I have lived in the city for over 40 years and have seen many changes to it. And there has been a lot of good changes. The downtown area, when we moved in, was a terrible mess. There were vacated buildings with stores moving out left and right. It was totally turned around to a vibrant city with restaurants and galleries and people walking everywhere. But you can push change too far. I do not feel the downtown area is people-friendly anymore. Too many parking garages, terrible parking meters, and the restaurants and other businesses are leaving. Sometimes change can be carried too far, and it probably has been at this time in the downtown area. We have a lot of large buildings and parking garages, but it is no longer a city where people feel comfortable walking around. I am really concerned that the changes that are proposed in the new master plan is going to be another instance of taking changes too far. People like this city the way it is. They don't want to see major zoning changes. We like the larger lots and the single-family homes. We do not want low-income housing or the lot sizes reduced. It was clear at the neighborhood meetings that you had that the people liked their neighborhoods the way they were, but they hated the parking meters. As far as Woodward goes, it really needs updating with landscaping, but I do not think removing any lanes would be that wise of an idea. Sometimes change can be carried too far, and I think we should be focusing on what people like about the city and improving that, and not try to change the whole landscaping of the city. People like what they have here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on a non-agenda item? All right. Who hasn't spoken yet? Okay. All right. Is that a hand there in the tie? You might as well.
Thank you. My name is Thomas Horman. I moved to Royal Oak in 1978. I bought my home on 914 Genesee in 1993. I have a set of comments that I will provide to the committee for review, and assuming that we take up the proposal for the property at the corner of Rochester and Genesee at a future meeting, I will review that and make comments at that time. I would like to say, though, this is kind of deja vu. In October of 2019, the Zoning Board of Appeals met to consider a variance to permit construction of a mixed-use building on this site. The proposed structure was a 3-story building with ground-level medical office spaces and 24 multiple family dwelling units on the 2nd and 3rd levels. Residents of Genesee Drive, including myself, presented comments which supported the Zoning Board of Appeals' subsequent vote to deny the variance. What we have in the current site plan proposes a 3.5-story building with 44 or maybe 46 multiple family dwelling units on the same site. That's a larger, taller structure with smaller setbacks and more parking spaces than was proposed 4 years ago. I have more comments here, but from what I'm hearing about the master plan, we seem to be moving in this direction, not just on the corner of Rochester and Genesee, but throughout the entire city. And as several people have said, perhaps we need to take more account of what the city is now and put that into a perspective of how we can make it even better rather than completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater and starting from scratch. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. You spoke, but not on this issue, so you can, yes. Or not, I shouldn't say, you didn't freestyle. You actually were on the green field.
Again, my name is Carol Rash, and I too live in the subdivision where the home on 3041 Sylvan Drive is being considered to become a multifamily home in a single-family neighborhood. So I'm up here because I just ask that as you consider making decisions on the master plan, that you also consider the fact that whatever decisions you make, there may be ripple effects that we can't even think about at this point in time. I was fortunate to meet my husband. He was my neighbor on Sylvan Drive, and we've been married now for 18 years. He moved into my home. We've been very happy there. But if Royal Oak is going to start making decisions about turning a single-family residential neighborhood into multifamily homes, we're seriously thinking about moving. I know from conversations with others in the neighborhood, they're thinking along the same lines. So I just ask that you think about the ripple effects of some of these decisions that are being made about the master plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Last call for non-agenda items, public comment. All right, seeing none, I am now going to close the public comment section of the meeting, and that will bring it back here. Mr. Gantina?
I want to make a couple of quick statements to address some possible misconceptions. This master plan document does not rezone any property within the city. That is simply not what this document does. It is a long-term land use planning document. The zoning map and ordinance that would affect any plan like that hasn't even been discussed yet. So there's a lot of comments made tonight regarding the master plan and what it's doing to rezone properties. I just want to make sure everyone understands that that document does not rezone a single parcel within the city. With respect to the statements around the master plan eliminating single-family zoning, I'm not aware of any statement in that draft document that states the desire to eliminate single-family zoning. It's been stated many times tonight, along with the plan itself, rezoning properties. I just want to make sure everyone's clear that there is a process, and this master plan document does not rezone any properties. There is still another process that has yet to take place to put any plan that does come out of this process into effect, but it simply does not rezone properties, and I want to make sure that everybody's clear about that.
And that's why they call it a plan and not a set. No, but okay, Don, the meeting.
I'd like to ask a question. I mean, it's my city. I'd like to ask.
Well, no. Okay, let me say this. If you want to make a 3-minute presentation, I will reopen. If you want to talk, I'll let you talk. But we're not really in a dialogue right now. In fact, that's one of the things I want to talk about between us in a few minutes. But if you'd like to say something, I'm going to let you do it.
All right, I'd like to. My name is Paul Stritter.
All right, got to come to the microphone.
60 years. Anyway, how can you have a master plan and not let the people have a voice in it and vote on it? Hush up.
Okay, hey, all right, hold on. I let you, I open it up for you to come here, and I'd like you to stay in order, please.
Why can't, when we have a master plan, say, how do people like this? Because I've had nobody that I've talked to that likes it. And the people that I talked to in my neighborhood said, come back and tell us what these crazy people are doing. And I said, well, it's going to be voted on, isn't it? And then I said, no, it's not going to be voted on. How can you have a plan that you're shooting for? You say it's not rezoning. It's shooting for rezoning. How can you have a plan that the people don't want? Why would you do something like that? Why would you even consider a master plan without asking the people how they approve it?
Valid question.
Yeah. Just ask us. We'll tell you we don't like it. And
you don't.
there's a whole lot. Hey, I'm not. Hey, you be quiet. You be quiet.
Hold on. You're out of order. I'm going to ask you to sit down if you're not going to.
All right. Another thing, on Woodward, every time they mess with Woodward, I get more and more and more traffic down our streets. I've got to cut through a street anyway, so they come streaming down our streets. And when they fool with Woodward, I get more and more and more. Hey, just ask the people what they want. That's all we're asking. And we don't want this master plan.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm closing the public hearing for good. All right, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and I appreciate a lot of the comments tonight. I just want to underscore some of the stuff that Mr. Gantina said, because there seems to be, I don't want to use the word confusion, because I think this is a really complicated subject, a very complicated process. When we talk about a master plan, if people want it or not, we don't have a master plan in front of us to make a decision on. We've had lots of charrettes, we've had lots of surveys, we've reached out to people, we've done our best to collect as much information from folks that we can. We gave it to a consultant and they pitched a framework. So I think Mr. McGuire said it best. He said, I don't know of anybody here that wants to have, a multifamily development next door to their house and in their neighborhood. And I think he's right on that. So I think we have to remind ourselves, and this is more of a comment to Mr. Casada, I'm reminded after some public comment tonight that it is an election year. I've been at this for, over a dozen years, and every 2 years there seems to be, a lot of misinformation that gets out there. And I think it's important maybe before public comment or before the meeting, if we can kind of get an idea of what the, misinformation might be, that we can clear it up, because there's a lot of well-intentioned people that I see out here tonight that came to express their ideas and concerns. And unfortunately, a lot of that gets lost and derailed with, information that is clearly being disseminated that's not correct. Because it's incorrect. I'm sorry, I thought I had the floor, Mr. Chairman. Do I have the floor? All right, hold on. You're out of order. Like Mr. Casada said, this is more like a court proceeding and less like an insurrection. Let's just keep and stop interrupting the meeting, okay?
Okay, you know what? The floor is closed out there. We're on this side of the table. Okay.
So I think, and I recommend that this body, we try to get ahead, because I think some of the confusion about why, an agenda item was pulled off, I think it's helpful maybe ahead of the dialogue, getting into the meat of it, that we help explain some of these really tough, complicated processes that we have to go through. The fact that people weren't noticed, well, that's a zoning thing. We can't notice. We're a planning board, and there's things that have to be distinguished. And I think, because what I want people to do is focus on the things that really concern them, and not on things that are just, being perpetuated in the public sector that are untrue by,
Okay, well, here's what I'd like to do. It's one of the things I was going to bring up. It's not on the agenda, but at the end of the meetings, I like to say, hey, does anybody have any comments? Do the commissioners have any comments? We've had a couple already. And I go last just to be polite, but what I think is an issue. Oh, did you put your hand up?
I did.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to make it short. I apologize for losing my temper. It's very tough to sit up here, hear blatant falsehoods thrown at us and accusations thrown at us, and things that just aren't true. It's just sometimes you get. I've been doing this now for 30 years, and I'm getting old. I can't tolerate it anymore. Woodward Avenue is a state highway. Nothing's going to happen on Woodward Avenue without State Highway telling us they're going to do it. Yeah, it shows up in the master plan. We hired these guys to make a plan. It's called a plan. Not a set in stone, it's a plan. We hired them to generate ideas that they see going on around the country, around Michigan, things that they think can help us solve our goals of accomplishing what we have set for the city of Royal Oak. So they come up with these ideas. They've got drawings of 4-story buildings at the corner of Webster and Crooks Road. There's a fitness center there. They're not going to take it down, but they're just saying this could be what it is if you want to go down that way. You don't have to do it. But it's a possibility. It's an idea generator, and that's what the master plan is. It'll guide us, as Mr. Gantina said, so we can set our ordinance and we can set our zoning, and we can set all the rules based on acceptance of this master plan. I was part of the master plan process 20-some years ago. And nobody liked it, nobody liked it, okay? But it's the one everybody's defending now. All of a sudden we like it, okay? Master plans by state law have to be updated every 5 years. We haven't done it. We haven't done it. We're way overdue just to fine tune whatever we got in there. There's a hell of a lot of good stuff in this city and we want to keep it. But there's some stuff that needs improvement. Road diets. Road diets are being, okay, go get some federal highway money without including road diets in your plan. I mean, it's simple. We got to rely on state and federal people to give us highway dollars because we don't collect the highway tax. No one collects the highway tax. But we got to rely on the federals and the states to give us. And they have requirements that on certain roads that have lower, you got to have a road diet. And so we've got to do it or we're not going to get that highway money and our roads won't get fixed. That's the stuff people don't understand. We're not sitting up here making all these rules because we want to make life uncomfortable for people.
Well, what about the county?
The county doesn't have it. The county gave us money for a senior center. They don't give us any highway money. They'll take care of their county roads. We've got 12 mile or 11 mile? 12 miles of county road. That's theirs. I can't remember now. They've changed it. They swapped around. But yeah, the county's responsible for those. The county's under contract with state to take care of Woodward. And so those things all happen, and people don't realize that there's reasons why this stuff happens. Okay?
But the macroeconomic plan would probably...
Well, no, that's not good. This is not number one. The other thing I was going to point out, this is the planning commission meeting. It's not a campaign forum. So the three of you that are running for office that came up and gave campaign speeches, it wasn't lost on us. Take it into in the public forum, okay? Mike's not up here giving campaign speeches. But he certainly has got to defend himself, and you guys will understand, anybody who gets into the political game, they've got to open a campaign fund. That's against state law. You've got to have a campaign fund. And there are so many firewalls built into those campaign laws, even if we wanted to take money out of that, we can't. There's too many safeguards. We've got to file reports every 3 months so that they know where our money came from and where it's going, and they're going to pick up on any shenanigans. So this comments going out there that we get money from these developers. Well, I wish I knew where that money was. People accuse me of taking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars over my political career. I'm not a wealthy man. That money went into my campaign account, and that money went out of the campaign for campaign expenses. And even now, as I'm dissolving my campaign fund, a little bit of money, I've got to donate it to a nonprofit. I can't take it and do something with it. It's got to disappear from my control. And that's the way these things understand. But we have people here advocating that they're taking money from developers for favors. It's not the case. We're taking legally obligated or legally right campaign contributions for everybody. And there's a $1,000 limit per contributor. So if a developer gives us $1,000, it's perfectly legal. It's within his rights. It's within our rights to accept it and use it for the campaign, because you don't run these things for free. No, the campaign's going to run you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And you've got to get that, because I'm not going to pull it out of my pocket. My last campaign for state rep cost me $40,000. So it's got to be funded by somebody. But this gets in, as Mike brought it up earlier, this is silly season. This is campaign season. Everybody's running for office. So we've got people out there that are going to be shilling for their candidates, and others shilling for their candidates. And so these stories all get said, they all get exaggerated. Everything's Mike's fault, or everything's the commission's fault, or our fault. But we come up here, statements are made that, somebody says, that's all we have to do is change the zoning. We don't touch zoning. Site plans, we look at site plans. We look at things that are put in front of the community development department, and then we act on them. And if they need a variance on a zoning board, we give them permission to go to the zoning board and ask for it. And if the zoning board says no, then their site plan dies. I mean, if you're going to come up here and start criticizing us for what we're doing, please try to understand the process that we're using. And it's just, it's really simple. But maybe it's simple for me because I've been doing it for so long. But anyway, so I'm going to climb off my soapbox now. It's just very frustrating to listen to, like these things. We're going to build these buildings because this drawing that I pulled out of this thing said, we're going to build this building. It couldn't be farther from the truth. It's an idea generator. Maybe we'll do it, maybe it'll happen, maybe we, but again, we're so early in this process, and for someone to come up and say, where was the public involved? Public's been involved from the get-go. I went to those charrettes. I don't know how many charrettes we had. We've had public meetings. We had the meetings over on the parking deck, and it's publicized, and we're getting out as best we can on the city website, on Facebook, and whatever. But if it's someone, you don't tell the people where it is. Yes, we do. You don't listen.
All right. Anybody on this side of the commission that wants to make any comments here? Go ahead, Ann.
I'll just make a brief comment. Reading through, one of the things that it says in that draft recommended potential direction for the new master plan indicated that Royal Oak has been too reliant on PUDs as a way of having different structures in different neighborhoods, and as far I feel a little bit like I'm in either the twilight zone or like a different universe, because I read the same document. And my impression is we're working very hard to preserve single-family zones and be clear where we might put higher structures to stop using the PUD. And I would like to express concern and something that we might want to address. When the community benefits agreement list was being developed, I never saw the final one, and I read it as part of these materials last week, because I thought the meeting was last week, but I was wrong. It even indicates that I thought the benefits should be for all developments in the city of Royal Oak, not just related to PUDs or other special permissions. And so as we work on clarifying our direction with this plan and maybe some updating of our zoning, not to get rid of single family, but to be clearer where we permit other types of usages, I look forward to a day where we have more transparency and less confusion, because personally I would like to put the PUDs to bed and rather have clear directions altogether. And so I think that's where we're going. Again, I read the same document. I feel like I might have read a different one. But step by step, I hope we have better communication and clarity. That's all. And I thought I was going to be home at 8 p.m., so I'm overdue to go home.
All right. Clyde, anything?
Yeah, I'll make a brief comment. Thank you, Ms. Casada. Like all of you, we're in the same boat. I moved here in 1967. I've had 3 different homes here. I raised my kids here. They're both adults now. Nobody wants to destroy single-family zoning. I find it a source of frustration that DPC used the language that they used that sort of created this confusion that there'd be medium-density single-family or high-density single-family, and now we have all this kickback coming at us. Do I want my neighbor to be able to tear down their house and build a duplex or a triplex? Of course not. And would I want to, impose that upon you and your neighbor? Of course not. We all bought our homes in the areas that we bought them for, a litany of reasons. But the sacredness of our single-family homes and the reason that we chose to live where we chose, needs to be protected. And we all get that. And hopefully moving forward we can understand that, there are some tough decisions that have to be made. This gentleman made a reference to the site plan that was shut down by the zoning board on the corner of Genesee and Rochester years ago. And what he really cited to me was an example of the zoning laws working. It sounded like the plan was a bit too intrusive. The zoning board said, no, this is a bit too much for this particular spot. And the zoning actions worked. The neighborhood was protected. So we all have to remember that, you heard the comments about the first development tonight, and I think we were pretty clear with that developer that there was a lot of shortcomings that would need to be addressed. But you have to remember, any developer can come in front of us and, they can ask for the moon, and of course they're going to ask for the moon. It doesn't mean they're going to get it. But if I'm a developer, I'm going to ask for the moon. But there are safeguards in place, and believe me, we're all the same here. We're on the same team. We all love our neighborhoods, and we're going to protect them. Thank you.
All right. So my comment is about the process here. First of all, let me say the master plan is an extremely important process, of course. What is it? It's the plan that we have to have, and council will correct me if I'm wrong. We can't have zoning unless we have a plan, because the rule is you have to have you can't be arbitrary and capricious. You have to have a plan. You can't just ad hoc decide what you're going to do. So I think it's even a constitutional matter, you have to have a master plan. So you can't not have a master plan if you want zoning. Okay? I don't think we're going back to no zoning. So it is very important. But the process here does deserve a dialogue. I have some problem with a dialogue over from here to the audience. This is not really a very conducive to that. And I don't know exactly how we're going to deal with that, because we need to have a dialogue, and the Planning Commission is in charge of the master plan process. It has to come to us before it goes to the city commission. So we're the right place to voice a lot of this stuff. This is the right place to do it. But going back and forth is very unproductive, and so I don't have a solution to that. I just want to bring it up. It's something that I think we need to address, because the master plan process is not done yet. We got a ways to go. The only thing on the table is a master plan direction. That's all there is. There isn't even the first draft yet. And I just want to say one other thing about the single family zoning. Maybe I'm privileged because I'm on the planning, but I get to talk to Matt from DPZ. I talked to Matt from DPZ very specifically about the single family issue. They don't have any intention to suggest getting rid of single family zoning. None. Okay? However, let me say this. You're going to hear things about concepts that you may or may not like, but we hired those guys to tell us. We hired DPZ. There's not a single person on, well, maybe Ann, but there's not a single person here on this side of the table who's a professional city planner. We hired city planners. If you go to a doctor, or you go to a lawyer, or you go to an accountant, you do that because they know something you don't. We go to the city planner. We've spent the $300,000 so they can tell us about their wisdom. They went to school for city planning. Every single day of their lives, they work on city planning. They go all over the country and go to different cities. They get ideas. And just like any other professional, we expect them to come in and give us some ideas. Look at what we got. Give us some ideas. Give us some feedback. And at the end of the day, their job is to put us, the city, in a position to make an informed decision. Okay? And part of that is getting your input in this forum, online, in the charrettes. It's not done yet. We need to keep doing it. We need to do it. We need to do it the right way. That's all I'm saying. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Casada really summed it up right, and I just want to just elaborate on one thing. DPC just didn't take input from this body. They've been taking it from all of the citizens who chose to participate in the charrettes, the hundreds of people that provided their input, and those opinions are going to be vastly different in some cases. There are people that participated in those charrettes that have serious concerns about affordability of housing in Royal Oak. Can their kids and grandkids live in this city? So when you kind of put those concerns out there that may seem unrelated to planning and zoning have an impact on those. So DPZ is making suggestions to say, well, maybe you want to do this, maybe you want to do that, maybe that will help build your middle stock of affordable housing. So if your kid's a school teacher, a police officer, a letter carrier, they can live in the city when they grow up, the city they were raised in. So there's a lot of things that an input that they're taking, but it's up to us, it's up to the community, it's up to us to have a productive, respectful dialogue on how we get there as a community. And at the end, like most things, not everyone's going to agree 100% on it. I don't know that we could get 57,000 people to say, oh, this is the most amazing plan, we all love it. That's never going to happen. But if we have at least a basic framework that helps guide our future decision making as a community, that helps set us up and attract the right type of developments, so we don't get these ones that they pay their $500, they come up here, we turn them down and waste everybody's time, or we get ones that are really good and we don't really understand the bigger context and they end up failing. We need to have that guiding document, but we have to do it not from a basis of fear, not from a basis of rumor, not from a basis of, I don't understand the process, so you guys are all corrupt. We have to do it from a basis of respect. And all I'm asking is when we have these meetings, I find, personally as a mayor, commissioner, and as a planning commissioner, when folks come up here and express like, hey, I have concerns about parking, or I have concerns about, traffic through my street, those are important things for us to hear. But when we pollute the conversation with stuff that is absolutely untrue, what I suggest is if something doesn't seem right, or you have questions or you have concerns, you don't have to wait till tonight to talk to us. You can email us. You can go to the planning director. You can say, hey, I got this piece of information in my mailbox today that says that they're going to build skyscrapers in my neighborhood. We can easily shut that down and tell you there is unequivocally no plan. Like Mr. McGuire said, nobody would like to build skyscrapers in neighborhoods. But if there are things like, yeah, you know what, that is something that, the city commission or the planning commission is considering, what do you think? You know what I mean? And we have to balance that against 100 other opinions too. But let's stick to the facts. We're a strong community and we work together. Let's be respectful of each other. Let's not interrupt each other. Let's not shout and scream. Let's just, try to find ways to get our concerns out there and find the best deal. I'm going into this eyes wide open. I have no fixed idea what this is going to look like, and I hope everyone else will too.
You okay? I'll let you go. Real quick, I noticed during public comment, a lot of people indicated I've been a resident of the city since such and such. 71 years. I've been a resident of the city since 1952. So I do have some roots in this community, and I love this community. I've raised my family here, and I'm not going anywhere.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other comments from the commissioners, our planning director, or legal counsel? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to...
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.